No matter how unmatched one's perspicacity, coupled with one's sheer indefatigability, making one a feared opponent in any realm of human endeavor. Sadly, even the top G succumbed to being retarded by storing his Bitcoin on a trusted third party. I've met people who have lost 95% of their wealth because they stored their Bitcoin on FTX, and a friend of mine lost all of his company's earnings because he used FTX. So, around about this period, I've endeavored to create a new cold wallet that has two primary features. The first is that it's based on Jemison Lopp's empirical study of cold wallets. You can read about it in the treatise of cold wallets. And the first thing is that it is a single chunk of stainless steel 316L. It has a small but thick form factor. It has the inscriptions to decode the information as deep as the center punches themselves. It also has two holes either side so that you may daisy chain it, or you may nail it to a location away from most people where they go. And I've also removed the sharp edges so that it may be placed inside a condom and then inserted in any orifice should you ever need to walk across a border. The second primary feature is that I use dice to generate the entropy. Over here you can see 2d16 dice and a PCB that will convert the dice rolls into correctly encoded binary for you to center punch onto the device. This PCB will also convert all of the entropy into a correctly generated BIP39 recovery seed phrase for you to insert into your hardware wallet, such as the Trezor or the cold wallet, thus allowing you to sort of connect these dice rolls into the greater Bitcoin ecosystem. So you can go to paradigmlink.com and have a gander, but I've not enabled orders yet because I still have to finish putting together my pick and place machine, as well as getting my 3D printers working. So wait a few weeks. I think I don't know how long it'll take. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this next Indaba. Thank you very much.
CryptAxe, thank you very much for coming on. This is now the third time I've tried to get you on, and you actually said yes. Really happy.
Yeah, I can't keep saying no forever.
Yeah.
And I listen to the podcast, so
it's
cool
really?
to be on a podcast I listen to.
That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. I mean, we did a Twitter Spaces the other day, about a week or so ago, and I liked your answers, and I thought,
yeah,
if this bastard can get on a Twitter space for like 3 hours, you can bloody well get on a conversation with me for 3 hours. So I was like, okay, well, there we go. And you said yes. Good. So CryptAxe, now I've got a load of questions I'd like to ask you. But sort of leading up to this, I would like to know, of course, it's going to be involving Drivechains, a lot of this stuff, but I kind of want to start to know your background with regard to Bitcoin Core. And I'd like to sort of start off also, as we evolve, we go into the culture of Bitcoin Core, how Bitcoin core development has evolved, changed, maybe not evolved, devolved, whatever your opinions are. And it'll be good to steel man and also the opposite, straw man, what's going on with Bitcoin Core. Yeah, so let's just start off with where your main, how you basically got into Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, at first I got into Bitcoin just as a Bitcoin super fan, I guess I would say. I was following it on the internet for a while, and then some of my friends in high school, because I was still in high school when it had first been announced, they were excited by it. We even tried CPU mining. Don't tell the school. It did not work out because we were very impatient, and it turns out even back then solo mining was not possible.
Yep.
And then I was just following the slash dot articles that would come up. I remember the when the WikiLeaks started accepting donations and Satoshi disappeared. There was a lot of attention given to it at that time.
Yeah.
And then I just kept following it for a while. I never bought any, which was very stupid. And then after I got out of school, I had been working in IT, but it became pretty boring, and I wanted to do computer programming. And somehow I ended up learning C++ when all of my friends were telling me to do Java instead. And it just so happened that Bitcoin was written in C++. So I started reading Bitcoin commits and things like that probably around 2013. And so I was reading Peter Todd, Corey Fields, Code Shark, Peter Woolley, uh, Greg Maxwell. Yeah, and that was really fun just reviewing those. And I really looked
Satoshi
up to those
himself.
guys a lot.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try to do something like that in the future. I didn't think I would ever have commits actually merged into Bitcoin Core at that point in time. So it's really exciting now, looking back, that I'm actually doing some stuff involving it now. Uh, and then it was around 2013 or 14 that I met Paul, and that was like a huge exponential increase in my involvement in Bitcoin because I was fortunate enough to go to the Bitcoin scaling conferences
In Hong Kong.
and to no, the first
Oh.
one I went to was in Italy. It was in
Oh,
Milan. I think
okay.
that might have been 2016 or 15.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was another one after that in Stanford. And we we both were very excited about the sidechains idea at that point in time, and everybody really was. And we all definitely thought that Blockstream was going to deliver like an amazing two-way peg. They had all the top experts in the field, and to a degree, they definitely still do. And so it made sense to me that them working on that with this new company that they had created was going to work out really well. And we thought that Bitcoin Hive Mind could be released on that. And I think we estimated that that would happen like within the year or the next year. And now, a decade later, the sidechain two-way peg still doesn't exist. And so we started working on that part of it in probably 2016, 2017. And here we are today. I
Yeah.
do think I saw the Bitcoin Core development process change a lot. When I was first in it and I was just watching as a big fan of everybody, I feel like there was a ton of improvement all the time. People were super excited. And now it's slowed down a lot.
So, do you know Peter Hitchens?
No.
Okay, he's the guy behind Zero MQ. He died of cancer. Really, really influential fellow. You should read his material. He's got a series of books available. And one point I mentioned, I was like in emails to him, I was like, yeah. We were just talking about some particular open source project, and I mentioned, yeah, it's dead. There hasn't been any commits and whatnot to it for forever. And he was like, nah, doesn't matter, man. Like sometimes open source projects reach maturity, or or they just die, right? So maybe Bitcoin has reached maturity, and that's the reason for not enough commits coming in. Would you say that's a reasonable stance?
I think there actually are a lot of commits coming in, but the commits coming in aren't the protocol upgrades that people want.
So it's more
You
like
have,
moving furniture around the house.
yeah, actually, that's exactly what's been going on. I can't find anything anymore. When I look at the older versions of Bitcoin, I feel like I'm at home and I know where everything is, and I can explain things to people, and if they want to see a particular thing, how it works, I can tell them, oh, it's at this line in this file, and we'll go and find that. And now it's like walking into my house drunk or something. I'm tripping all over everything, and there's like new doors everywhere, and they put a staircase for some reason.
But maybe okay. Well, then maybe it's just development has actually increased, but like they're solving real world problems. Yeah. Do you think that's it?
I'm not sure about that.
Why would you not be sure about that?
Well, when you look at the commits that are happening, it's to, like you said, moving furniture around.
Okay.
There's demand from this the economy around cryptocurrency, obviously, for things that
Yeah.
Bitcoin can't do.
Yeah.
There's been efforts to make small changes like check template verify or any prevout, and those don't get anywhere, even though they're relatively small changes. It seems like changes that are actually improvements and add functionality are what has stopped, but improvements to other things have continued.
Yeah. Do you think it's people? Do you think it's an overall dumbing down of competency in Bitcoin Core? I mean, because Patrick Todd has been there since the beginning, right? And so there's obviously a very competent developer over there.
Yeah,
What stopped? Why?
the majority of them are very competent. And a lot of them have been around the whole time. And I still think that they're very competent. I think maybe they're scared. I know that they're scared
What are they
based on
scared
the
of?
reactions they have. I think some of it is maybe they're worried that if it was too successful, they would lose control, or maybe if there was a software improvement that made their job not maybe as necessary, that they would lose that prestigious position that they have. I think they're scared that if it was successful enough, there'd be more resistance.
Hang about. Surely, if a project becomes even more successful, you're going to get even more fame and recognition from that, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
So then why did you mention that particular line of reasoning then? I mean, I don't see how don't see how, like, if Bitcoin were to become like the, you know, the international monetary unit of exchange, at that point, it's like Peter Todd, etc., would be just like, yeah, I'm king of the hill. That's great. But
I guess I hesitate to say that they've become stupid, so I'm trying to come up with another reason.
okay. So why do you think they've been? Do you think incentives have been aligned in other ways? Do you think it's a matter of money?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible, but I can't prove anything.
I mean, there's no proving. We can. Okay, let's open the XML tags. Speculation.
Yeah.
We will close them later. So I mean, okay, so there's very clearly some form of a dumbing down, some form of a deliberate attempt at not merging in, like, any prev, for example. I was having a conversation with Fiat Jeff, and Fiat Jeff was like, this enables so many wonderful things. It's like so simple and I was, it's not in. It's not in. Do you think that it's a matter of shit coins that have been spinning up for now many years now, and they've attracted a large budget, and even through ICOs and whatnot, those teams behind those particular coins, maybe they look at this and they say, poof, I want my coin to be number one. Let me try many different ways to kill the king. And there's a marketing budget for this, and there's means and methods to deliberately, and in the form of Craig Wright with his legal attacks against Bitcoin Core, you get a shock, a fear shock to the system, and as a result, all development stops. So look at Ripple, at whatnot. I mean, this is definitely not speculation. What I'm saying here, this is actual fact. Do you think this is a coordinated effort of shitcoins?
If they have a budget to market against Bitcoin or to attack it in any other way, it'd be silly for them not to do that.
Yeah. Okay. But then you get the the Max Kaisers of the world who say, no, Bitcoin is designed to be attacked. It's meant to be attacked. That's what it does. It's just normal. And then everybody sort of piles in on that. I mean,
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be resistant to the attack of development stagnation.
yes. Okay. But for them, they don't really care because it's just like, that they don't care about development and whatnot. They just want to see number go up, basically. I mean, if you keep it still and steady, as long as you respect the 21 million cap. Okay, let's just assume there's a whole bunch of stupid people, and the only thing that they can understand is the basics of you've got a certain of inflation, right? So you've got a bunch of oranges, you've got some money associated with the oranges, you increase the monetary supply. What effect is that going to have on the price of oranges? And they can basically understand this. They're creating TikTok videos about this and how it sort of works, and people understand that, right? But when you come to like complicated stuff, it's just like, what the hell's that? No. So has Bitcoin become the simpleton currency of the cryptocurrencies?
Well, I don't know. To me, there's still a lot of very smart people involved.
Yeah. But they're not pulling their weight then. They're not pulling their weight. Yep.
Yeah, so I guess that means they're doing it on purpose then.
Right, exactly. Because they've already got demonstrated ability, and now it's just not happening. So there is a reason for that. Maybe they've become fat and lazy now. Fat, lazy cats. They've got loads of Bitcoin from the early days, and now they've got like houses in Monaco and shit like that, and they're like,
Yeah. Well, I was trying to suggest that a little bit. I think some people basically make a ton of money just traveling around doing presentations at conferences.
Oh yeah.
And you wouldn't want to give that up.
No. How much money can you make?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Maybe I should become one of these people. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
No, you couldn't do it. You have to sacrifice part of your soul to do that.
Oh yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I have to sacrifice to the shitcoin gods. Is that right? Because it's the shitcoin gods that are running all these talks and whatnot, I suppose.
Well, I think that's part of why Drivechain is so resisted to by some people, is that part of the Drivechain system is the proposal of sidechains on the actual blockchain, not through GitHub. And so if Drivechain was activated, it would completely bypass the control of the GitHub and allow people to propose updates without their permission or without them talking about it at conferences. You wouldn't have to pay them to review it. You wouldn't need the seal of approval.
So all the work
like Jeremy Rubin could have proposed a check template verify, and it could have been activated on a sidechain after a period of 2 weeks. And the whole time they were complaining about it, and people could be using it now.
Okay, so all the energy and effort that has gone into rent seeking on this little piece of this critical piece of real estate, which is the GitHub repository. And that's the main source of income because, well, there's been no ICO, right? There's no on Bitcoin, but I mean, they have got increasing purchasing power from Bitcoin. And as a result, they're like, well, fuck it, we need a source of income. And this now threatens that line of source of income. But do you honestly think that making money from talks, conferences is so lucrative? Because I remember Peter Todd saying that that he does get invited to lots of these talks, but he doesn't actually get any speaker fee. So he gets airplane tickets and maybe hotels and food and whatnot paid for, but he doesn't get a speaker fee. If that's true, then
That's kind of a paid vacation at least. It sounds fun.
I mean, sure, but it's not money on the bottom. It's not money on the on the bottom line. It doesn't add to your money, right?
No.
Yeah, but remember, Peter Todd did make a pull request, which is to remove the cap limit on op return, right? What happened there? What was the story there? Because I mean, we spoke about in the previous Twitter space, and I think, and you had lots to say about that. Let's hear.
Yeah, well, the op return limit, there's a couple of different policies about op return. One of them is that it's
Well, can
only
we
allowed to
define
be...
what op return is first?
Oh yeah. Well, op return is the hex value 06A, 0x6A. And if that's in a Bitcoin script, it tells the script interpreter that this output is unspendable. And that means that it won't go into the UTXO set. The node doesn't have to keep track of that output. There's no script that it's going to have to verify at any point in time. And so people have used that as a way to add data to Bitcoin outputs. And there's a policy to limit the amount of data that can be added to 80 bytes. And there's also a policy that there can only be one of those outputs in a transaction. The policies are only in regards to what is a standard transaction. So it's not whether it's valid or not. It's just whether it's considered normal and that it would be accepted into the memory pool of most nodes. You could already create op return outputs that were, well, I don't actually know what the real limit would be. There's probably some limit besides the block size limit you would run into, but theoretically it was already unlimited. And so the pull request that Peter Todd opened would just make it so that the node behaved based on validation rules instead of policy rules. And the other change that they did not want to remove is allowing more than one op return output in a transaction. And of course, a miner at any point in time could include those in a block if they wanted to. There's no validation rule against it. So the change that Peter Todd wanted to make was very insignificant in the sense that it wouldn't stop validating anything that it previously did. And there was no enforcement of the 80 byte limit. It's impossible to actually enforce.
I see.
And somehow that was very controversial. And I think that actually I'm going to have to accept what you said with the dumbing down. And that the part of the reason it's controversial is people do not understand that there was policy rules that are just set by the software and not validation rules. And I think they were maybe thinking that that meant that there would be more data in the blocks, like people are scared about the ordinals stuff right now.
Yeah.
So they're really worried about data going into blocks that they don't like. They're okay with signatures. They're not okay with pictures.
Come on, man. I hear you. I hear you. Okay, so it was a bunch of hoo-ha that was kicked up, and it was much ado about nothing.
Yeah, it's a totally trivial, like that code being removed from Bitcoin Core makes it more simple, and so it's an improvement. It didn't have any benefit. So Peter Todd's pull request was all benefit, no cost.
Yeah,
but it still was incredibly controversial.
Yeah, and
he didn't even remove all of the limits.
What was interesting to me was in the comments of that particular pull request, Paul mentioned. I mean, so Peter mentions that a client paid him like $1,000 something US to make that PR. So it seems like there's a lot of people that are paying core developers to make these changes and submit them, whether they're going to get merged or not. It doesn't matter. Just make the pull request, Peter. Just make the pull request, and then maybe some tiny fraction of a hope we can get this thing into main.
Yeah, we're
That
kind of trying to do that too, and I don't know what the result will be.
I was leading up
If
to it. I was leading up to it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, wait, pretend I didn't say that. You can lead up to it.
So, so now we've got a situation where most of these developers, um, maybe they're implementing another form of gatekeeping. Hey, they're like, okay, the typical industry programmer in large companies, what they do is that they fucking put on the heels, man. They will put on the heels because life is better that way, and things just I can sort of drag my ass and I have a comfortable life. And as a result, if code wants to come into Bitcoin, well, we've all got an agreement that we're going to drag our asses. But if you want us to move, then you pay us, and then things will happen. Do you think there's an element of this?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so pretty much.
Things move much faster when you pay Bitcoin Core developers. That's all I have to say about it.
Oh, really? Is that so? Have you how much faster? I mean, that's all you have to say about it. Now I
Like
have to dig into you.
days versus months.
Is that so? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow. Okay. So this is a nice little rent-seeking place, yeah? Nice little place to sort of extract value. Huh? Maybe
It's completely impossible to tell who has sponsored what pull requests. So,
aha. So there's some sort of like a thing going on behind the scenes. Maybe like a little market where people can pull off issues and say, okay, this one's got this amount of money on it. Okay, let's give that to the kingpin, Peter Todd over here. He's making, the big lion eats first kind of thing, right?
it's tough because they have to make money somehow.
Yeah. What
And
what happened to something called Brick? Was it Brick?
I don't know.
I think some British guy, he created some sort of fund which could pay core developers, right?
Oh yeah, actually, early in Bitcoin, there was the Bitcoin Foundation created by Bruce Fenton, and
Yes.
people hated it
Why?
because well, treated it as though he was trying to take control of the project by controlling who would receive funds and
Yeah.
things like that. It
Yeah.
was essentially like a grant program for Bitcoin developers.
Right.
It's been a long time, so I don't remember all the details, but the last time that people tried to do this in a public way where you would know who was being paid to do what, there was a lot of resistance.
Mm.
They sort of like excommunicated him for a little while there, I feel like.
Mm. So two things come to mind. I remember once looking, back in 2016, 15, 16, 17, it was interesting to look at these altcoins popping up and whatnot, and the communities that sort of arise from them. And you look at them and you engage with them and you talk with them. And I remember it was like this, there's almost like this privilege that normal people had. And they were like, yeah, fuck it. If you're a programmer, you do it for free. You do it for free.
Yeah.
And it's just, I looked at that and I was like, what the hell are you people thinking? Like what the hell? I mean, like, what do they say? If you don't pay for the product, then you are the product. It's like,
Yeah.
if the community doesn't find a way to pay programmers because this is their coin and their wonderful thing that they're investing their money and time and energy into, then what's going to happen is that those programmers are going to find ways to extract value. And there's going to be a natural mechanism for that to happen. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, they're going to put down their heels and like, okay, it's important to you. Fine. I'll do your job, but you got to pay me, which is okay. I don't mind that. But what happens in the scenario whereby something like Drivechains comes along, which could completely void that thing, then everybody suffers.
Yeah, I think that that's part of the issue that nobody talks about.
Okay. Do you think this is the
And
majority
and so
issue? Is this the primary reason? that Drivechains is not merged?
I've had almost zero feedback about Drivechains code. I've had zero feedback about Drivechains code. No one from Bitcoin Core has ever pointed out a bug or anything like that. They don't ever tell us what's wrong with the BIP. They don't say anything really helpful. Nothing that anybody could respond to and improve.
Hmm.
But there's no evidence. I can't prove that it's because of that either. And I maybe we'll find out. You might be proven correct if paying somebody to open a pull request for us also doesn't work. That might be because it would destroy the entire system that they have that benefits them.
So you're paying for the hand grenade that destroys this little rent-seeking thing. So, all right, now we go up to the Luke Dash Jr. pull request. Okay, Luke Dash Jr. He's just been re-enabled on Twitter or X.com, and I don't know, it doesn't sound like him. So, but
I saw that post and everybody asking him to prove that it's him. I don't know what to think about stuff like that anymore because people accuse me of being like a weird shill federal agent, all kinds of crazy stuff. It seems like there's an immense amount of paranoia going on in Bitcoin right now, like more than is healthy or beneficial. And I'm a pretty paranoid person. So it's like standing out to me as being extreme at this point. Like very unhealthy. Not the kind of paranoia that will prevent a bad pull request, but the kind that you just lock yourself up and never do anything again and until you starve to death or something.
Yes, entirely impractical. It's like
Yeah.
completely impractical, and the culture is represented in the code. It's like, oh no, we can't do anything because Granny over there is gonna have like a car accident or something, or Granny over there is gonna die or
Yeah.
something. It's like COVID all over again. Oh man.
Yeah, so I don't know. It probably is Luke. Maybe he was just typing on his phone or something and he was distracted. I don't
No,
know.
I was actually just having a little bit of fun with that because obviously it's him.
Oh, I know.
But
I was looking at that earlier. I thought it was funny.
okay, cool. But
I'm really curious what his announcement is for, actually. I don't feel
ah,
like it's related to this, but I don't know.
see,
I actually don't know.
I immediately thought it would be Drivechains.
It might be. I really don't know.
Maybe he's written. Okay, excuse me.
Luke is independently working on the drive chain rebase and pull request. He's a very like self-driven, independent guy who's basically working on it on his own and just asking questions every once in a while. So
No,
I'm not
but he's not being
super.
paid to do this. I think he's being paid, right?
He's being paid.
Okay, so it's not really independent, right? Oh, I mean, you mean
I
from
mean,
the rest of the
independent.
gang?
Yeah, yeah.
I see. And he's got one of the major contributions towards Bitcoin. So basically, most other developers would be like, okay, well, if Luke's okay with it, then what can I say? Is that right?
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of the best possible people to open this pull request because he's widely respected.
Yeah.
He's he's also like he does think for himself. I don't think that he's totally like in the Bitcoin cult. He's maybe in his own
Own
cult,
cult.
just like me. I think that's the way to go.
Or to have your own cult, right? Just
Yeah, just for yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know if you
Hey,
were around. Were you around to see Daniel Kravitz's Cult of Bitcoin YouTube series, The Night of the Living Cult Members and everything?
so like I've been around since like 2011, but the thing is like there's just been so much noise and I just
Oh
switch
yeah.
off. I just switch off to this nonsense because I take one look at it and I'm like, I don't have time for your attention seeking look at meism. Just fuck off. I just don't. I just don't. I've got so
Yeah,
many
a
other
better
things.
question would have been if you had time to see it.
Oh
That
no,
one's
no.
probably it's worth looking at because
Oh,
it's
is
pretty
it?
funny.
Well,
Yeah.
how did? Oh, was he just sort of taking the piss out of cults? How
Yep.
Bitcoin has become a cult, right?
Yeah, and that was back in 2016, 17, so
Oh, okay, okay,
he was
okay.
a little bit ahead. Unfortunately, he left Bitcoin entirely for Bitcoin's Satoshi vision.
Oh shit. fool. Mind you, I mean, like,
there has been some brain drain because of the altcoins for sure.
I mean,
There has been a bit of stupidification of Bitcoin because of that.
yeah, yeah. So it's like the brain is a network consisting of a number of nodes all interconnected, and if you remove all the like a portion of those nodes, then the
Yeah.
average stupidity just goes down because you don't have so much feedback from other neurons and whatnot. So
Yeah, and now they're even coming back around to go after some of the Bitcoin core developers and making them not want to work on it
uh-huh.
because of the lawsuits.
Yeah,
So
wow.
we created a real monster with that.
Great. So, Bitcoiners are shitcoiners, man. This is like my new motto. I swear by this thing. It's like you get people that are like, okay, I get into Bitcoin or crypto, and then they buy out all this stuff and they lose all their money, and then they become
Yep.
hyper um
Oh, there's so much of that. Bitcoin maximalism has created the majority of altcoins. Ethereum was created by Bitcoin maximalism.
yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Ethereum, which gets far more transaction usage than Bitcoin already.
Well, they've got a layered solution. Anybody,
Yep.
any sensible engineer is going to design in layers. And when you look at Bitcoin, you don't see layers. It's just
Yeah,
like,
and even the Bitcoin core developers that are around today, the majority of them know that. They were around when everybody agreed that there was massive consensus that we would scale using layers and sidechains. And there was conspiracies at the time against Blockstream that they were working like for the Illuminati or something like that.
oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was sad. But then they
Yeah.
never delivered.
Probably because because they were so conscious of what the community is saying about them. And they were like, oh well, this is
Yeah, and that's
too hot.
kind of around that time, I think that it went on a downhill adventure towards the bottom, and people got scared to make changes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. Um, there is
Everyone before the scaling a Bitcoin conference in Italy, everybody basically agreed it was going to be SegWit and Lightning Network and sidechains. And then at the conference, there was basically nothing actually about scaling. Some of the miners just got up and left because there was nothing on the schedule that was like relevant to what the concerns at the time were.
I see.
And then there was the huge SegWit 2x and the block size wars that delayed, even SegWit was delayed for a very long time. And then it was 5 years later or something that Taproot activated, and that was what, 3 years ago now, and there's not even a plan to do anything.
Yeah. So we
And I like software not changing a lot. Like I don't want Bitcoin to change a lot all the time forever. I I think that there's some upgrades we could do that would make it so that it could change on second layers and that you could change there a lot all the time indefinitely.
yeah. Yeah. What do have you engaged with miners on this subject? Well, I mean, like for example, there's something called Sky Doge, which is an implementation, a new. It's just another altcoin, which has got
Yeah,
drive chains enabled.
Sky Doge is sort of a parody altcoin, it seems like to me. Like they're showing off Drivechain on their altcoin. They're telling the altcoins that they're gonna come and shut them down. But it's also kind of making fun of Bitcoin that they couldn't do it.
So,
And
yeah.
it's working. I mean, they're using it right now, and they didn't have help from us, so they pulled it
Okay.
off.
No, 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 no. So I'm chatting with the founder of Sky Doge. He's a cool dude. I like him. I like that dude.
Me too.
Yeah. And he mentioned that he found some maybe some bugs and whatnot within drive chains, and he actually submitted pull request. Oh no, I'm not sure about pull request, but he was in discussing things with you.
Yeah, I've had way more useful feedback from Sky Doge than from Bitcoin Core developers. The
that's
Sky Doge developers have tested the software more than anybody else that I know of. They've
yeah.
set up mining pools. There were some problems with the mining pool setup that they helped figure out, and they helped me fix that.
Oh, so it wasn't necessarily within the actual changes to the actual mining node, or the node. It's actually around the mining pool. Is that right?
There were some changes that had to be made to the node in order for it to work with the mining pool. The way
Oh,
that the majority of mining software is set up today, they they actually ignore the Coinbase that is created by the Bitcoin node and then
oh,
recreate a Coinbase. They generate the witness commitment faster, and they they do a bunch of other weird stuff. So he had to modify their pool software in Drivechain so that they could add the other Coinbase commitments that Drivechain
oh,
uses.
I see. What pool software do they use? Because I've recently been
I'm
looking at.
not sure.
Oh
I
shit.
they told me, but I don't know. I can find
Okay.
out right now though.
Okay. I'll message him. I'll message him. Yeah. No. I was looking at trying to set up a drive chain mining pool. Actually, yeah, a little bit.
It's
I want.
surprisingly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
annoying.
there's not one straightforward open source pool software
Yeah.
that is obviously the one that you would want to use.
No, you have to do a little bit of googling, and you're like, shit, what the hell's going on here? This is not as
Yeah,
simple as it looks.
no.
It's not like CG Miner and you're done, right? No, it's and there's a bunch of proprietary crap out there too, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
I think the highest performant versions of CG Miner are a closed source proprietary software.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. There you go. Anyway, let's continue along with um drive chains. Now, I've spoken to Paul a couple of times already, and asked him what drive chains is, and he would explain it to me. Maybe you could also do something similar. So, because I ask this question is because I see so many people on Twitter and they just have no fucking clue what drive chains is, and they're not prepared to listen to to read anything. It's like, daddy, feed me. So, okay, well, here it is. Here's the spoon. What is
Yeah, I
drive
agree.
chains? Yeah.
Sometimes it's really confusing to people that it is a technology that allows you to do things that we don't know what they are yet. It's allows you to do new things that we haven't even come up with yet. So people say, what's the feature of Drivechain? And the feature is that you can create new features without having to change the main chain. So first you have to know what a sidechain is,
Yeah.
which is just think of Bitcoin, but it's another separate blockchain. So like Litecoin or Dogecoin, but instead of having its own economy and its own token, it's attached to Bitcoin like a tumor, and it feeds off of Bit.
I don't know if you should be using such examples, but yeah, you keep running with that, brother.
Yeah, well, it allows you to have a connection to another network that has different rules.
Right.
That's really all it is. And you can have any rule over on that network. You could have it be an entire Ethereum sidechain. You could have a Zcash sidechain. You could have a sidechain that is just Bitcoin Core, but it has BIP 119, 118, and vaults activated, and we have that as an example sidechain that people
Mm.
can use. And you can also have it do completely new things. Like we are writing a sidechain in Rust that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It doesn't have a script interpreter. It doesn't have a normal memory pool. And we're going to try to use it for writing Namecoin.
This is another whole avenue that I want to go down to. We can open up that later. But yeah, let's put a bookmark on that. So okay, so drive chains, it doesn't create a new token. We got Bitcoin on the main chain, and that gets lifted up into a side chain, And then those tokens that are lifted up into those side chains is used within those side chains. Now, are you forced to use a side chain?
No, you do not have to use a sidechain.
Okay. So what happens if you use a sidechain and I don't want you to use a sidechain? I'm a communist. Should I just stop it all? I'm being facetious. I won't. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you don't get to do anything. You can watch me use it and you can complain about it on Twitter. You could record a podcast about it, how bad it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. And is your sidechain gonna destroy my main chain?
No,
Why not? Because I've heard all
because
sorts of things about Mev, and Alex B
well,
says so.
apparently MEV just means transaction fees. So actually, yeah, we're going to create a ton of MEV because we want to add a ton of transaction fees to Bitcoin. So it's going to be MEV like crazy, like you've never seen it before.
Well, what the hell? Now you're going to incentivize miners to make money. What?
Yes, I actually want them to make more money. I know it's crazy.
How dare you? But what about the developers? The developers will get jealous.
Yeah, that's going to be really unfortunate. I think they probably will.
Ah, maybe that's another
They
reason for
might
them.
already be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're like, I want some of that. I want some of that sugar. But the
I
thing
think
is,
that it's a decentralized system and the protocols within it should also be decentralized. You shouldn't need to talk to people to propose a soft fork. You should be able to propose something and have it voted on in the way that Bitcoin would handle something, which is using proof of work and
yes.
economic incentives and the blockchain. Even you could hate it so much if you really, really hate Drivechain and you're infinitely wealthy, then you can just buy all the mining equipment and force people not to use Drivechain. But it's probably not going to work out for you because of the way Bitcoin works. I think a huge problem is that you're saying that they're becoming more dumb, but actually I think sometimes people working on the code, like especially Bitcoin code, that's so complicated, they start becoming like computers. And I've seen it happen to myself a little bit. And so then when you try to explain something to them that isn't a function that they can prove, and every time you run it, it has the same result, and they can show you this cryptographic function secures my coins, I have to produce a signature, and unless imaginary quantum computers come and get me, then it's totally mine. What they don't realize is that in Bitcoin, to move coins requires economic incentives. A Bitcoin miner has to want to do that for you. You don't get to make them do that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole game theory associated with this. And as programmers, I've seen this also in myself, and I've had to sort of pull away from this, is just you get so myopic about the
Yeah,
code and you forget about, there's aspects of life that you forget about. You forget like how rational, normal human beings operate and the
yeah,
decisions that they make. And you start designing systems for these autonomous compiler type human beings. And it's not applicable. You're not solving real world problems. You're becoming a problem to the real world. You're not enabling a future whereby you have international reserve currency of the world. No, you just in your corner nerding out over fucking cryptographic primitives and stuff. It's
that's
not.
why we have new address formats and we don't have new soft forks.
Well, I mean, the new address formats is where it's at. Don't take that away from me.
Yeah, well,
Jesus.
it's something that you can put on a slide at a presentation and you can show, oh, the
Oh,
computation's zero point 0.1 millisecond faster, and now I'm smarter than everybody else in the room. The
it,
benefit to humanity of you doing that was absolutely nothing. In fact, it was negative because you just wasted some of the top engineering talent doing a completely useless task. Like someone like a Peter Wolla could have written Drivechain 1,000 times by now. What would take me 6 months, maybe he could do in a month.
right.
I wish. like I don't want people to be in control of my Bitcoin or how I use Bitcoin or how anyone does it. But if somebody could be in control of the developers just for a little bit, it might be beneficial.
I have said on one occasion, I'd love to see the developers of Monero just like transplanted onto Bitcoin.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
that might be quite interesting, actually. Shake things up a little bit, you know? Shake things up a little bit. But yeah, you have an interesting cadence in your conversation. You make a point, it's a very valid point, and then there's a little bit of a break, and then there's another valid point, and then I have to be aware of that. I have to, yeah. The more I'm doing this, the more I realize how bad at conversation and being able to keep things going is. It's actually quite difficult to do this. Yeah, just as a
I,
side point, like
I'm not helping much with that.
no, it's okay. It doesn't matter. You see that's my job. Like for example, I remember watching a Joe Rogan interview, and I'm thinking I got pissed off at Joe, and I was like, "Fucking moron! There's so many better questions you could have asked." And then when I did my first interview, I was like, "Oh shit, this is really really hard." And
Yeah,
then it takes time
yeah.
to sort of come right. But that's okay. I don't want you to now I might make you self-conscious, but anyway.
Oh, don't worry about it.
So all right. So we've got this Drivechains issue. Peter Woollock would have implemented it in like 1 month versus you. And now we've got all these just address change formats. You know, it's a massive circle jerk, right? Because an
Yeah,
address change format
you,
sits nicely on a conference slide, which they're charging money for, and rent seeking keeps going. Now, here's the thing: if we wanted to make it clear that actually, if you're using a scarcity mindset, resource, sort of resource scarcity, can I say, like a fear-based mindset, fear-based decisions, whereby
yeah, I
you,
know what you mean.
yeah, okay, good. Surely, by promulgating the image or the impression that by having something like Drivechains, you actually create a prosperity type thing, whereby your skills as a programmer, Peter Wooler and other people, become very, very beneficial because now people, instead of having to go through the whole drama of creating a side chain and spinning up a token and doing the marketing and fundraising and getting an ICO and then convincing people to use this token, and it's got a single purpose token. No, you just go to one of the core devs and you say, okay, listen, we will pay you to implement this particular side chain to do X, Y, and Z, and you skip the entire networking thing, the whole market, the community building, which is super expensive and so annoying. Because people will just look at them and you just market your sidechain. You say, look, here's the source code. This is how it works. This is the feature that it offers. And now we have Gucci coin. Gucci coin you can collapse it back to the main chain and go spend it in Armani, for example. This is, I know, I mean, most programmers probably won't even think of that because they're so stuck in their crypto primitive world that they forget that people like Armani and fucking Bugattis and stuff like that. So, so the question is, would sidechains create this prosperity type of environment, and how would you see that unfolding?
Yeah, I'm pretty biased, but yeah, I do think that they would. And you can see examples of it early in development when people like Vitalik left so that they could start Ethereum. People who had the idea for ZK proofs, instead of trying to add that to Bitcoin, they knew better than to waste their time, and they went and they made their own coin separately. And then things like Grin come out, and it has to be a different coin. It can't be on Bitcoin. If
Yeah.
we have any type people who wanted to do scaling, those people ended up having to make their own coin. And then even within those communities, the disagreements led to more fracturing. So immediately one benefit would be that fracturing could stop. Someone like Jeremy Rubin could have activated a CTV sidechain, and people could be testing it out and measuring it technically and on whether people want to use it instead of socially, and depending on who proposed it and if they talked about it enough or they're in the right way to the right people. It would also it would save a ton of time for people that are Bitcoin Core developers. They wouldn't have to be constantly reviewing the social consensus of pull requests. They could focus only on bug fixes to Bitcoin Core. In my opinion, an ossified Bitcoin Core would mean that they're just fixing bugs, not that they've like all disappeared and we don't change anything ever again. But they could do that and save a ton of time and energy wasted, and then all development improvement could happen in Bitcoin. We
A
would
lot.
keep everybody that we lost, and
Mm.
that's not even getting into the economics of it. We would also have all the transactions that left. We would have all the mining that left. It's a huge amount. And I think people are almost pretending that they don't see it, that Ethereum is used more. People are building huge mining operations for other coins, and all of that should be on Bitcoin. It would
Uh,
make Bitcoin maximalism a real thing that's actually possible.
mm. Yeah. 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 Man, it's yeah, it's tough stuff. It's tough stuff. Um. mm, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at like what happened with Ethereum, and also they fucked up, you know, with the DAO hack. And then from there's another shatter, another sharding. So many different shards that have happened, you know, even with Bcash. Was it
Yeah.
Bcash? I think Bcash wasn't actually a fork of Bitcoin. It was a fork of a fork of fork of
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
it started as Bitcoin ABC, which was a project that was going to allow people. I can't remember if it was just to signal for what changes they wanted or to actually start to use them on forks. But it was to allow people to choose a small block Bitcoin, a big block Bitcoin, and maybe also something in the middle. And then, yeah, that was forked into Bitcoin Cash. And I think that's also been forked further into other things as well.
Yeah,
Obviously, Bitcoin SV.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And people just keep doing this. They just keep forking, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And now, right now, there's a thing called Bitcoin Inquisition, which
What
is a
the
fork of
fuck?
Bitcoin that it's not a active fork as far as I know. It's just a GitHub with a modified version of Bitcoin so that the developers of vaults and any pre-vow and check template verify can actually have somewhere to do it and test it out and experiment with it.
So it's a test net.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is run by Bitcoin developers or the people behind any
Yeah.
pre-vouch
Yeah,
and
a lot
stuff.
of Bitcoin Core developers are involved in it.
Oh, there's such wasted effort.
Yes, it is.
What would an
It's
ossif?
cool that they're working on that because you can see the actual implementations of those things and you can see that they do work and
Yeah,
you could test them out. But in order to add that to the real Bitcoin Core is going to be a huge project also that would require rebasing,
yeah. Assume,
moving
assume,
things around,
assume for a
and then
sec.
the political process too.
Yeah, but assume for a second that you've got a similar sort of like instead of Bitcoin Inquisition, it's like Bitcoin Drivechains,
Yeah.
and and then what happens is that through a drive chain, you can actually spin up your any pre-vout testnet type thing. But it's on a real type Bitcoin Inquisition type thing, you know, which is like it in and of itself is a kind of testnet. But then all your experimentation happens as a side chain on drive chains. Why didn't they just spin up one of these things?
Well, I think that the people working on that want to activate those on the main chain and not as drive chains. And it would add a layer of difficulty if they wanted to activate it as a drive
Oh,
chain
oh
because,
yeah.
yeah, trying to propose like OP Vault is already really difficult. If you had to say, I need you to activate drive chains so that I can do this, then that's really a hard
Yeah,
sell.
yeah, yeah. So what would it a lot of people on Bitcoin, crypto Twitter, these fucking twittards, they all want ossified Bitcoin. And they say no. An argument that I don't want drive chains on Bitcoin is that I want Bitcoin to ossify. What
Yeah, and that's
role does
counterintuitive to me.
yes. So how does drive chains allow ossification of Bitcoin? And secondly, what does a properly ossified Bitcoin look like? What kind of changes would happen for that to be manifested?
Okay, I'm gonna answer it in reverse order because I think
Go for
it
it. It's
actually
much more
works that
exciting
way.
that way.
So I think this is a very debatable, subjective thing, I guess. But to me, an ossified Bitcoin would mean that we have eventually a release of Bitcoin that is stable enough for people to use it for a long time without having to do any software updates. And there's not going to be huge changes to it that make it backwards incompatible. But there's going to be updates to its security. There's going to be updates to its dependencies. Basically, maintenance versus changes. We would change from modifying the software to just maintaining the software. A lot of people already call them Bitcoin Core maintainers, but maybe they should be called Bitcoin Core modifiers or something because they haven't maintained what was Bitcoin. It's changed significantly. And I think Drivechain would really help us get there because Drivechain itself is of course a change. And so it might be a little bit confusing to people to say that it would help with ossification. But the reason it does help is because Drivechain is a one-time change that allows you to update the software on layers instead of having to modify the main software. And the benefits of that are that it's not going to cause backwards compatibility issues. It's not going to cause main chain issues, especially to people who don't run any of the side chains. And all of that still happens on Bitcoin instead of people creating altcoins. So you can lock down the Bitcoin validation rules, and Bitcoin can continue to evolve forever without the main chain becoming backwards incompatible at any point.
Yeah. Do you think it would be a good idea to promulgate the idea that layer one is the cold storage layer, the security layer, the security sidechain feature branch? So what main chain is the security layer. You make
I
your
think
money.
that that's how a lot of people already see it that are Bitcoin Core developers,
Yeah,
but
but not
they
the
don't
average
see the
person, right?
second part.
Which is
Well, in order for it to, if you want the people to care about the main layer, it has to have some kind of value and functionality for people. It can't just exist and because of that it's valuable. There has to be somebody using it for something.
hmm, another argument that people have about drive chains is, well, what happens when a side chain becomes more valuable than the main chain?
Yeah.
CryptAxe, lo and behold, the sky is going to fall. What happens when that happens?
Well, it seems like that's impossible because it is part of Bitcoin.
Okay. I mean,
That's like saying that you're worried Bitcoin's going to become more valuable than Bitcoin itself. I mean, it does happen sometimes. Your Bitcoin one day is worth more than it was the previous day. Is that a new Bitcoin now? It changed.
dude,
That relates to what you were saying about the main chain being like the cold storage layer, though. Originally, when Blockstream proposed their sidechain to a peg, a lot of people accused them that they wanted to shut down the main chain and force people to use sidechains. which I think is like a misunderstanding of the entire concept because you have to use the main chain to get onto the side chain. And
Yeah.
then the reason that the side chain wants to be attached to Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is the most secure, it's the most popular, it has the most development. It wouldn't want to fight against that. It would want to improve that.
Yeah, there's also one other thing is that it is the gateway, the move between all the different side chains. So the main
Yeah.
chain has got all those features. It's got all those different sorts of things that are happening to it. So it's like this. It's like it's like a stem cell. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It can grow into anything. Maybe people just, I don't know. I'm going to open up a separate. Sometimes I really do wonder about like democracy, and especially out in America. It's like everybody's clamoring for their own opinion. They think their own opinion is so important, and that they should be listened to. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You're not even a fucking programmer. You don't know the basics, and yet you clamber on these platforms and then share your opinion. Because now what's happened is that I believe I spoke with Paul that, and actually somebody mentioned this, that changes that happen to core should not cause any controversy on Twitter.
Yeah, that's an insane barrier to entry
What
because
the
then I can
fuck?
just I could single-handedly censor the entire protocol forever by having one Twitter account that complains about everything.
Well, like Shinobi.
Yeah, I think we would all benefit economically in terms of our software improving and mentally with our mental health if Twitter was not part of the Bitcoin upgrade process.
That would be like a very obvious point, but when you start making lucrative deals from conference tracks, then Twitter becomes your marketing platform,
Yeah, yeah.
your bullhorn that you use to, and then moving chairs around in the code base increases your GitHub commits to the
Yeah.
GitHub,
Oh,
so you can push it on yourself and say, look, I'm on the stage and this is my amount of commits that I've done to
th
Bitcoin.
this is gonna make people mad, but one way that I don't know, I shouldn't even say this is kind of
Say
mean,
it.
but if I see somebody on GitHub and their entire little, the little squares that show you when you've
Yeah,
made
the green
commits,
squares.
if
Yeah.
if the whole thing is green and blue and stuff, I know that they're manipulating that by doing stupid crap just so that it's all lit up and pretty and they can show off. And you go and look and it's like 1,000 refactoring. I added one note to the docs and then I deleted it and then I moved it over here and I changed 5,000 lines because I indented all of them.
Yeah, I've seen this in shitcoin companies.
Yeah, oh,
Um,
especially. Yeah.
yeah, and those shitcoin companies, what they do is they move the furniture around. It looks
Yep.
like significant progress, and then they start measuring their repositories against other shitcoin repositories, and they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
look at us,
total number of changes.
we're fucking number one. And then the community's like, yeah, go, and they have fucking no idea, no
Yeah,
idea.
unfortunately, people can't really assess that kind of thing.
No, they can't. They just can't. And it's, yeah. And drive chains, man. Now I'm seeing particularly poisonous characters from, and I know them. I've interacted with these people from the different shitcoin communities,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they're
some are new and some are old.
yeah,
They've been around forever.
yeah. It's a constant struggle, man.
What did the shitcoin communities that you interacted with, what was the image you got from that?
It was okay. So it was the Ethereum Classic
Oh, yeah, yeah.
community, and they're a particular brand of of poison to a certain degree, because like it's like intentions might started out well, But then you've got this like distillation of maximalism that comes from the fork of from Ethereum away from Bitcoin. Maximalists going off in that direction, and then Vitalik does his stuff, and then you get a concentration of the maximalists, which are like fucking chilling on their original thing, and it's just like they are so ideologically motivated to have this world computer that's proof of work, and it just becomes like this echo chamber of toxicity and annoyance and anyway. So now what's happening now is I'm starting to see a few of those fellows coming across over in response to what's going on with the drive chain movement. And I'm like, the first thing that crosses my mind is like, you're interested in this because if drive chains were to be merged, all your shit coins are fucking, the value is just going to be pulled right out of your entire belief system. All the nasty comments, all the fights that you've had within that community, all of that just becomes meaningless. So now they're coming and they're like, okay, now they want to pick a fight with Paul. And I'm like, Jesus. Yep. So now, if drive chains looks to be like a nuclear bomb type technological invention. It's like the discovery of genetics, or it's like,
you said me calling it a tumor earlier was bad. Nuclear bomb.
Well, I was going to say the transistor. Okay, dude.
I like that way better.
I mean, nuclear bomb is a valid technology. I mean, yeah, it's like discovering aluminium or steel or something like that. Within the Bitcoin world, and people are not going to want this. People are not. They're just going to be fighting tooth and nail for this not to happen. So not only do you have the core developers who don't want this to happen, but you've also got the shitcoiners who don't want it to happen. Well, the Bitcoiners, because they're also shitcoiners.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Hey, I don't know. Sometimes I look at this thing and I admire the patience of Paul, and if it was me, I would have laid into these people. I would have cut deep into them. Like, what? Just. And Paul is so civil, and he's, and then he loses the patience with one or two of these absolute trolls, and I'm like, well, there you go. Like, that's so innocent, Paul. Why not just fucking destroy him? And then the community start laying into him for being rude or something like that. No,
I've seen a few times someone says, "Oh, he's being mean," and then you look at the conversation, and it's an argument that he's had with the same person he's having it with right now, that he had 6 years ago and 5 years ago and 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And these people will spend 10, 15 hours a day on Twitter, but they will never read anything that you ask them to read. They can't read the code. They won't read the BIP. They never ask good questions that yet come from a point of understanding.
Yeah. And yet they have PhD in their Twitter title. I bet you we're talking about the same person. I bet you.
There's plenty. You don't even need to pick one. There's so many.
So,
I actually like some of them now. Like Brian Trolls. I love how consistent he is. I find him funny at this point. And he has actually pointed out one technical argument against Drivechain that nobody else has.
Which is?
And that is that sidechain deposits require a modification to a memory pool policy rule where there's a maximum number of unconfirmed ancestors that a transaction can have. And so
sorry, unpack all of that.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no, you go for it. Do it again, because my mind was going in a different direction. Say that again slowly.
Yeah, so he pointed out it's not actually a problem, but he pointed out a technical issue that Drivechain has addressed and would have to address to work.
Yes.
Which is that there's a memory pool rule that a transaction can only have 25 unconfirmed ancestors. And that means that the inputs of the transactions have to be from a confirmed transaction, or else it starts to keep track of how many ancestors back it goes. And that would mean that the transaction inputs that created this transaction are unconfirmed. and they were made from outputs of another transaction that's unconfirmed, which was created by another transaction that's unconfirmed. And that can go back to up to 25 transactions that are
Yes.
unconfirmed. And sidechain deposits all stick to one UTXO per sidechain. And that makes it so that we're not taking up a bunch of space. It's super efficient. There's only ever one UTXO per drive chain. There's
Yeah.
not a ton of UTXO bloat and stuff. And so in one block, you can have unconfirmed ancestors that are greater than 25, say 26 people deposited in one block. That would be 26 unconfirmed ancestor inputs. And so you have to connect to a node that has a policy update to its memory pool in order to share those deposit transactions around. Now, he's correct that by default, a Bitcoin Core node would not accept the 26th transaction. But the idea is for us to activate a soft fork, and part of that would be updating the policy that a drive chain deposit doesn't follow those limits. And his response to me saying that was also correct, which was that you would need to connect to an updated node. And he sees that as like a deal breaker. But I see that as an obvious thing that you have to connect to nodes running the same version of the software if you want to use the new software stuff. And I don't think that the other nodes should be forced to keep more than 25 unconfirmed ancestors in their memory pool if they don't want to.
Interesting.
So it's like a very nuanced point about memory pool rules. But he's the only person that has ever really pointed out a technical thing like that. So I actually appreciate Brian Trolls now.
So for all the hate, it's become worth it just for this one little nugget of information. Is that right?
It is the best criticism of Drivechain that I've ever seen in my life. For the last decade, I think it's the best one I've ever seen. It's totally invalid and not a real argument, but it's still the best one I've ever seen.
Oh man. No. Brian Trolls irritates me. He irritates me. But now that you mentioned this, maybe I should start being more chilled about it. No, I look, hey, I've taken a whole different view about this. I think you liked one of the tweets I made. It was the Osiris, Isis, Horus, and Set example. I don't know if
It sounds cool. I don't know what you're talking about right now, but it sounds like something I would like.
Oh, okay. So I've got a tweet up there on Twitter, and essentially it works like this. I will do a bad job of trying to say the story, but Jordan Peterson does a better job of it. And the way it works is you've got Osiris, and Osiris represents structure and order. And Osiris is the king. Everything is in order, but the king is old. The king is old, and the system has basically fallen apart. And Osiris is not looking at that which is important, and that which is important is being ignored. And what is happening is that Osiris's brother, which is Set represents maliciousness, evil. Set introduces sort of chaos. You see, like it causes damage. It breaks apart structure, and because Osiris is not paying attention, Set comes in and starts to create destruction and destroying Osiris. And in fact, Set tears apart Osiris, and then spreads Osiris across the entire land of Egypt. In fact, each one of the different regions is named after like different parts of Osiris, apparently. So I understand it. And then what happens is that Isis, which is the wife and sister of Osiris, represents chaos. So as soon as order gets destroyed, what happens is chaos comes up, and chaos is looking for order. They're like a duality type thing. When order is destroyed, chaos is now the dominant, and that's Isis. To me, Brian Trolls and pretty much everyone. They're like the dead. If you use the example of the Lion King, Osiris would be Mufasa. Set would be the Mufasa's brother. I don't know what the Fang. I think it was called Fang, right? And the hyenas would be the nearest approximation to Isis, the queen of the underworld. And then Horus would be Horus is the child that gets born when Isis finds the dick of Osiris and impregnates herself and then has a child. And then this child is called Horus. And the interesting thing about Horus is it's born and raised outside of all the politics, outside of everything. But it has the attention. It has the ability to be focused attention. That's why it's a bird. It's a bird of prey. It has better eyesight. It can see further than human beings. It can see where there's problems. It can see the malicious intent of people in the form of Set destroying things. So what happens is, as Horus grows older, comes back to the kingdom with a different set of knowledge and tricks and new sets of information, and then attacks and sends Set to the outer regions of the kingdom. You can never destroy Set because Set is a concept. It's maliciousness. You will never destroy maliciousness. The only way you can keep it at bay is through attention. So then what happens is that when Horus wants to take the kingdom and bring it back, Horus needs to go to all the parts of the kingdom and reconstitute structure, reconstitute Osiris, and then take the throne together with Osiris. So, you got your structure and then you've got your attention. The attention is to ward off maliciousness. So in our situation, to me, Bitcoin Core is destroyed structure. The shit coins are an example of all the different forks of Bitcoin. Every single fork of every single shit coin or altcoin is a fork of Bitcoin. It's shattered, it's sharded everywhere. It's like a floodplain. The water's moving slowly. It doesn't have any sort of like energy about it. And people like scammers, like for example the shitcoin founders who created the ICO, pump and dumps, all of those people are like malicious people that just care about their greed and whatnot, and they're the one that are actually destroying Osiris through their ICO scams and whatnot. And then all the people like even people like Adam Back represent ISIS. So because they're like the living dead, you see, they're like the zombies. And I mean this I don't mean to say that Adam Back is like a zombie. Yeah, I'm just saying that he's it's almost like he's living. It's like old ideas, he's not living with the new, fresh ideas. He's not bringing them forward. And the same was with Brian Trolls and Alex B and all these people who don't want to read about this new vital thing that can come into Bitcoin, that can bring it back together, that can return the structure back to Bitcoin. And to me, like Paul is essentially Horus, because Paul's got this idea. He's very clear insight, very, very clear insight. And what he needs to do, he needs to aggregate all the Osiris, all the original core developers. He needs to bring them together. There's no way Paul can take the throne, essentially. And I use this in inverted commas. There's no way Paul can really sort of ascend if he doesn't have the support of people like Luke Dash Jr., Maxwell, all the core developers. That is a long-winded sort of response and example, but this story is basically one of the oldest stories of in fact the entire Egyptian cultures, I believe, is based on this concept of structure being destroyed and chaos arising, and how to mitigate that. How to mitigate a maliciousness through attention. And this will happen in every single organization, whether it be like a, like a book club group or anything like that. The same pattern occurs time and time again. So yeah, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, actually, I kind of weirdly feel the same way. I feel like things have been kind of falling apart and fracturing
Yeah.
to like an exponential degree, and it just keeps on speeding up and getting worse. And
Yeah.
then you do have somebody who's trying to put it all back together, and then there are a bunch of hyenas out there
Yeah.
that don't want it to be put back together.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why.
Well,
They won't tell, they don't seem to know why either.
yeah, I mean, look, if whenever you want to understand a system, just look at how money flows, right? So we can't exactly see how money flows through somebody like Brian Trolls's pockets, but you know, complete speculation. I wonder how many shitcoins he's created. Total speculation.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
It's hard to tell sometimes which ones are actually completely committed to their position and which ones are just scammers.
Yeah, yeah. I should probably retract that because I mean there's just absolutely no evidence. But if
Brian
you,
Trolls, I think he's actually serious about all of his statements, and he probably hasn't made any shit coins.
yeah,
Not directly, but indirectly by being, they call it toxic to people. He has caused fracturing to increase
yeah,
with people not wanting to work on Bitcoin.
yeah,
People who have previously worked on Bitcoin have left because of not Brian Trolls, but because of people acting like that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, those are just the
And
hyenas, and they're looking
we're
for, and they're just looking for order. They're just looking for Osiris.
yeah, and we're so fractured right now that some fake Satoshi guy is able to intimidate us with
Wow,
lawsuits.
wow.
You know, that should have been a big joke to Bitcoin developers and to Bitcoin people. Like, oh, this guy? I don't know how people take it seriously.
Yeah. So we can see how weak Osiris is. Huh? He's on the
Yeah,
death. He's on the uh, deathbed, man. Like when
yeah,
somebody who so clearly is a scammer and a fucking
yeah.
fraud.
If someone like that has influence over the Bitcoin development process, which he absolutely does, by convincing people to leave, or at least pretend that they left and operate under fake names, it's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So yeah, and
And I thought Paul would be able to, honestly, at the Scaling Bitcoin conference, that was maybe the first time I got to meet a lot of the core developer people that I've only seen on the internet. And I actually felt like things were going to improve, that maybe not even Drivechain, but maybe Blockstream's sidechains, something like that was going to happen. And I felt like things were actually going to get fixed and things were going to be improved and we were going to start cooperating again and reunite the empire instead of it being all fractured. But it just keeps getting worse.
yeah. Well, you've read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, right?
I have read Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, which is
Okay.
one of my favorite books, but I haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet.
Okay. So Atlas Shrugged
It's
is
shaming
essentially
me on my bookshelf.
yeah, I know. So Atlas Shrugged is essentially about like trying to change systems, I suppose. Well, at least that's why I interpreted it. And like good luck in trying to change a system because it's already got an amount of inertia in it as
They're
it
on a
is.
train, right? In that
Something
book?
like that. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember. I can't remember. But essentially it's about that. And I look at this thing and I say, Paul, yeah, I understand that you need to bring Osiris with you. You need to rejuvenate Osiris's different parts and um, bring them back together again. But maybe the right way to do this is not by trying to change Bitcoin core, but instead to fork. Create a new fork, and on that fork, you ossify the fuck out of the protocol. You reduce the block size to 350 kilobytes.
Yeah.
You make it simple and clear. Changes will come in very fast, very quick, sensible changes, and as a result, you can point at this new thing, go to people like Greg Maxwell, all these good people, and say, "You're welcome here. We are reorganizing. We're bringing together the states, the empire, we're bringing structure and Osiris back together again, and this is where we will do it. Come together." Because there's no way that there's too many hyenas in Bitcoin core at the moment. Too many hyenas, and they're just going to bite your ass. And what's going to happen? I fear about this. I look at Paul and I think this is one of the most brilliant minds I've ever spoken to, and I genuinely think that. He's brilliant, and I don't put heroes on a pedestal. I do not do that. If Paul, I will speak truth to power with Paul, but I do not want to see Paul growing old, not having fulfilled something like prediction markets, but the full implementation thereof, which requires the privacy coins associated with it.
No, me either. I think we would all lose out.
Oh yeah, no, the society would lose out.
Yeah.
On this is the next subject I want to open up, which is the prediction
People don't
market
recognize
stuff.
how much potential there is.
I didn't recognize that too until I had a conversation with Mike out here. I'm becoming quite friendly with Mike Young out here. He's a nice fella, really nice. Getting to know him quite nicely, and he's very sharp-minded. Whoa, he's sharp-minded. He's very peaceful and calm and lets you have your say, but then actually he comes up with the most brilliant of ideas, and he got me to see the potency of prediction markets. Good God, man. Good God.
Yeah.
and wow, I mean, talk about rejuvenation of life. If the very first side chain that comes on is a prediction market side chain, fuck.
And that's something that people wanted to do on Bitcoin, and it fractured off, and now you have Augur and you have all this other crap that doesn't work.
Why doesn't it work? Because it doesn't have the network, or what?
Well, they changed a ton of how the prediction market outcome calculation would happen, and more or less it's under the control of people, and that's the problem.
Oh, I see. Shall we temporarily close the chapter on Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core and start to open up the prediction market
I had one
stuff?
more thing to say about the fracturing, actually.
Okay, let's talk about that.
One problem with Paul bringing everything back together is, I think that a lot of people would have to admit that they were wrong for a very long time, and that they sustained their incorrect position for an extremely long time, despite evidence against it.
Yeah.
And it might kind of damage their expert image.
Well,
I think that would be fine. I'm wrong all the time.
No, but that's the nature of why you call them the Walking Dead, you see. Because they're living an old dead idea. They're hanging on to it. They're clinging on to it. That's why they are there. That's why they are ISIS. That's why they are the Walking Dead. So you need to be able to rejuvenate these people. You need to be able to give them some sort of a way forward where they look at this sort of thing and think, fuck these old ideas. This is far too exciting. This stuff, new stuff over here is far, far too exciting. And it's not going to be possible unless you actually have something that's really working, really executing.
Yep.
As in a hard fork of Bitcoin. It has to be that way. Where they look at it and they're like, fuck, this is actually the new Bitcoin. This is the new way forward. Because you have to take on a legion of hyenas and the Walking Dead for you to get your vital seeds planted. They are just going to destroy those seeds. So yeah, and I don't want to see Paul become bitter. Maybe there's an element of him becoming bitter already, but like those ideas are going to get destroyed if it's if he keeps on taking on the hyenas like that, in my opinion. In my opinion. Maybe it's a harsh opinion, but it's
Not
just the
many
way I
people
see it.
agree. There's tons of people disappointed that we haven't already done that.
Tons of people. Then if you were to do a hard, okay, I know Paul was very, very much against creating an altcoin, another hard fork, but it kind of get the feeling that things have changed now. I think he's been ground and nipped at by these hyenas for such a long time that he's been tested so many times now that he just looks at this and say, well, maybe, I don't know. I'd love to see that, actually. I'd love to see that. Anyway, maybe you can have a word with him and say, come on, let's get this Osiris back together again. He's also got the network to connect to these people, and he's well respected in the original gang, the original group of programmers. He's well respected. He's well respected, this fella. And he's been very consistent. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I don't want to see Paul become bitter, and I want to see these ideas start to flourish and take root. And it's seeds thrown on rocks at the moment. It needs to be fertile earth.
Well, every strategy is on the table for sure, but
yeah.
Nobody who's really loves Bitcoin for so long wants to see it fracture again.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But I also agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. But also, there's another thing that's about the West. And one of the reasons why I've moved to the East is because out here in the East, things are so practical. We're practical people out here. It's not baggage down with ideology and all this absolute nonsense stuff. No, it's about people going and making a living and making successful businesses and getting shit done. It's not like, oh, you're the difference between you're a purist or not. None of that stuff. Here it's almost like you're free to find whatever sort of creative means and method, as long as it's within the law, to make a living. Here you can be a street sweeper and people will still acknowledge you with respect and whatnot. It's a legitimate job, it's you're contributing to society. It's not like, oh, poo, you're X, Y, and Z or something like that. Sure, there might be an element of that, but it's much more practical out here. And maybe a good way would be to do this new thing out here in Asia. I think it would be a very, very, there would be good grounds for these ideas to take root in, but there's certain things which might be very difficult for prediction markets to take root here, and I say this also carefully because out here in Asia, especially China, now Hong Kong has become very CCP, right? I have more freedom here in China than I have in Hong Kong specifically, but also in China. I have more freedom in China than I have in America or in the West or in Europe. Contrary to what many people believe. And the reason is because I believe communism is so inept and blind, essentially, that the only way to cause problems for myself is if I create a movement against the government. If I move people against the government, that's when I'm going to be in real trouble. Speak out against the government. But otherwise, I'm free. I can create different sorts of businesses. I can, live good lives as long as I don't become too powerful like Jack Ma or something like that. Because even in the West have democratic processes and their means and methods to curtail monopolies, and monopolies can cause annoyances. The CCP also has its ways to curtail monopolies when people get too powerful. Now, why am I saying this? Okay, yeah, because out in the West, because we're much more east, because we're much more practical, and
You were gonna talk about the problem that prediction markets would
Thank you.
create
Thank
with the
you. That's
law
great.
because of who it might replace.
Ah, so now, yes, because I had an interview with Robin Hanson and with Paul, and I must say those two interviews really, really opened my eyes. The simple question of saying replacing the CEO of this company is, would
Yeah,
it have beneficial results? So out here in Asia, we have something called what we loosely describe over beers, drunken talk. We call it competitive dictatorships. And you get like Shanghai has been competing with Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is
yeah,
competing with Singapore, and they're all fucking dictatorships. But as long as you don't mobilize, and Thailand now with Bangkok, as long as you don't mobilize against the local government or the government, you're fine. Life actually is pretty damn good. I mean, recently,
yeah, yeah.
so as a result, what happens is that, like, for example, Carrie Lam, who was the chief executive, the equivalent of prime minister of Hong Kong out here, she became so neurotic about making Hong Kong a CCP territory, and so many people left Hong Kong for Singapore. And the United States has cut her off the SWIFT network. So she doesn't have a credit card. She can't have a bank account.
Wow.
So she gets paid in Hong Kong dollars. She's got stacks of cash in her home.
Yeah,
so 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 as a result, that's because Hong Kong is so integral. The banking system is so integral to the West. You see, so they're just gonna like say, well, America has a blacklisted Carrie Lam and a certain groups of people. Well, we have to follow this, otherwise America is gonna just like fucking cut our fingers off or something like that. So
yeah,
so now also one of the side effects is that Carrie Lam can't really travel to many of these countries. So, but Carrie Lam said, "Oh, I want to travel to Singapore," and Singapore's like, "Sure, come on in. I mean, it's because of you our economy has improved so
yeah,
much. You see, it's like all these very competent people have left Hong Kong because you decided to crack down on Hong Kong and you fucked Hong Kong up badly. So, Singapore's like, hey man, thanks so much. Why not do something similar out here in Asia? If the West are being fucking retards, if the programmers in core are being so fucking retarded, if the community in crypto Twitter are being so fucking retarded that they can't even read basic stuff, come to a place where people welcome you. And it'll be practical stuff. It's going to be practical where we look at this thing and say, okay, this is the technology. What can we do with it? Does it make our lives better or worse? Oh, no, it makes it better. This is how we use it, X, Y, Z. These are the steps we take. Execute, execute, execute. Bam. And now Singapore is better than Hong Kong. The East will be better, even better off than the West as a result. And we can already see this because the East is the manufacturing hub of the fucking world. We manufacture everything. We do everything. The West sits there and say, oh, well, we'll print the money. We'll print the money and we'll become, slobs and you make the shit for us. Eventually, it's like, okay, no, we don't do that. We've got this hard money. It's based on this amazing technology like Drivechains, and it's got all these different sort of thing. It's like, okay, no, we don't want to use your US dollars that you print arbitrarily. No, this stuff is all proof of work around here. We've got all of this stuff, and we've got Armani coin that you can sync down into main chain, and you can go spend it in Gucci, or you can do all that sort of stuff here. Oh, what was that? Oh, sorry, you're using rocks to as currency. Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay. If you want your stuff, start to interact with this kind of currency now.
Yeah, when there's actual choice for people to make, competition is always a good thing because you get to choose what is better for you and also make the other things better because they have to try to compete with those things when everybody leaves. Like maybe Hong Kong will change their policies in that regard so that people want to come back.
Yeah, exactly. But by the way, do you know that Hong Kong has already got a set of what's it, laws or something, regulations regarding crypto now? We already have that.
No, I've read a few things about it, but I'm not super familiar.
We've got that now. We've got that now. So you can come in here, you can create a crypto business, and all's golden. I mean, sure, like the wheels of motion. You speak to lawyers, and maybe they're like, "Oh, we're not sure about this," but the point is that there is regulation in place. So you can come in
Yeah,
here and you can
yeah.
create this sort of stuff. It's going to be.
Well, Layer 2 Labs Asia is in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I know. Well, Mike is out here, right? So,
Yeah,
I'm having a great time with Mike. He's one of the OGs, eh? Do he studied in Canada. He's been in Bitcoin since for many years now, and he's seen all the different sorts of things that are going on. It's fantastic having somebody in
yeah.
the space for so long. That I can just sit down and just chill with. I think I might make this fellow into a friend of mine. He's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, he seems like a great guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of what you've been saying, though, do you know what the tagline on the drivechain.info website has been since 2015?
To make is it to make every transaction a Bitcoin
When
transaction?
dev no, it's when devs compete, users win. That kind of gets at what you were suggesting. Unfortunately, there is no implementation competition whatsoever.
No, there's lib Bitcoin, right?
I guess, yeah,
Come
that's
on,
true.
man. No, that's no. I guess yeah, no. That's not fair to what Voskul has done. Voskul, I have a lot of respect for Voskul. A lot of respect for that fella. Um, he's yeah, he's fighting a good fight over there, and I also don't know why you guys. Yeah, why is it that you guys don't use Bitcoin? It's I mean, do you think it's because you want the hyenas because they like core or something like that, or is it why not just go with lib Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't know.
I think that people have in general, people accept Bitcoin Core to be Bitcoin. And so convincing them to use Drivechain on what they think is Bitcoin is one argument, but convincing them to switch
Uh,
to a new Bitcoin with lib Bitcoin and to start using Drivechain is really hard.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and lib Bitcoin could be the best thing ever. I'm not commenting on how good it or bad it is. Just
yeah,
the consensus and all of the attention is focused on Bitcoin Core.
yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Nobody actually knows what miners are running, and nobody
Maybe.
really knows
Yeah.
what like Coinbase is running, and a lot of them are not using Bitcoin Core. A lot of the exchanges are using the JavaScript Bcoin.
Oh shit. Seriously.
I'm sure lib Bitcoin is being used somewhere.
Yeah, I know. It'll definitely be. It'll be that. So, well, then interesting. So then, anyway, those are those
It's
business
tough for me
decisions. Yeah.
because I'm not against doing it with lib Bitcoin. I don't like the current version of Bitcoin, so I don't really want to do it with Bitcoin either.
So, what version of
It's just
Bitcoin do
whatever
you like
people will
then?
accept. I like the old version of Bitcoin
Which
before a
one is
ton of
that?
refactoring was done. I like version 0.16 is my favorite, which is super, super old.
That's the SegWit one. That's the
Yeah, right when SegWit activated. Uh, which I could live without SegWit, but I'm not against other people using it. I
yeah,
would prefer if it's modifications that don't have to do with SegWit were removed, like the block size being calculated differently. I'm not a fan of.
yeah,
It's just because it's confusing to me. It's really the only reason.
yeah, yeah.
I don't like it when I don't like it when things like that change and now math is done differently.
What was the reason for that though?
I don't know what the actual reason for that was.
Okay,
I think it was to appease people who wanted a block size increase.
I see.
And so we ended up losing all of those people anyway, still increasing Bitcoin's block size, but you're forced to use SegWit if you want to increase the block, if you want to more transactions. You can't do legacy transactions. I'm also a huge fan of legacy pay to pub key hash, the address that starts with a one. That's
Yeah,
basically the only one that I've ever used and probably will ever use.
that's great.
But you can't even use the newer versions of the Bitcoin wallet. They're trying to remove all of that.
Did you say the lib Bitcoin wallet?
No, in the Bitcoin wallet, the
In the
Bitcoin Core
Bitcoin. Oh,
wallet.
I see. They're
Yeah.
trying to remove. Why? Why?
There's, well, to be fair, the wallet is pretty awful, so redoing the wallet's not the worst idea, but they're switching to something I do not understand at all called a descriptor wallet.
Okay. So I
And
can't even ask you questions about that because you don't understand it. And
nope.
you've contributed to core.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's okay, all right. So yeah, no,
I don't feel
Paul
like I
mentioned.
understand a lot of the recent changes that people have done. I don't
Yeah,
understand Taproot.
yeah, yeah. People seem to talk about Taproot as if it's the holy grail of something.
Yeah,
But
of
it's not
something.
even, there isn't even a decent problem description associated with it. And I believe the implementation and specification are two completely different things now. Like,
That's usually what happens, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, it is usually what happens.
That's been a
That
big challenge with Drivechain because Paul will write the BIP in a very clear way that I managed to misunderstand somehow, and then we have to come together and figure out what we should actually do and rewrite the code. We have personally reviewed and rewritten Drivechain 5 or 6 times now because we've had time to make every single improvement that you could possibly think of.
yeah.
And
But this is the right
it,
way to do it. You see, you
yeah,
don't come up with a specification first because the specification, you sit there and you got a bunch of fucking nerds sitting in the corner fapping away about what is cool, what is not cool, and then and especially the further they are away from hardcore programming, the more likely that specification is going to be an astronaut engineering specification, and
yeah,
and and it just introduces chaos and it makes your code base complexity oriented design or trash oriented design. And the more hardcore of a programmer it is, the specification essentially comes after you've done multiple code iterations, multiple testing, and you've made it as simple as possible. That's when a decent programmer will then put pen to paper and say, okay, this is the specification. The net benefit of that is that your code base becomes simplicity oriented design. And all of this
yeah,
is taken from Peter Hitchens. But yeah, no, so my impression of what I'm starting to see of core is that it's heading towards trash oriented design or complexity oriented design. And complexity oriented design is great for, like billable hours, right? It's great
yeah.
for, all this kind of absolute trash that sort of goes into it. So that's the cynical side of me coming out. So
There is more support than ever for something like Drivechain, and people are finally starting to be fed up with this dysfunctional process. So
what
I
amuses,
feel optimistic at the same time as being worried.
well, yeah, I hear you. But what I find quite amusing is that a few of the drive chain naysayers who a while ago were very vocal about this, they were very vocal about drive chain. And now what happens is that now that there's a bunch of hoo-ha being kicked up, they're sort of like backtracking a little bit and they're like, I think what's more important is that everybody stays together. We stay together,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, you fucking hypocrite. You fucking hypocrite. There you
I
were.
I guarantee if Drivechain activated, all of these people are going to say that they supported it the whole time, that they knew it was always going to happen.
Of course they did. Of course they did. And all the drama, the fucking miners stealing from you. Well, guess what? That's not happening. Oh, I told you already, like months and years ago, that miners wouldn't steal from you. Like, oh,
Yeah,
Jesus. You fucking. That's why they're zombies, man. That's why they're the Walking Dead. They're incapable of thinking with their own brains. You see. Anyway, so let's get back onto prediction markets. Now, in the scenario out here in Asia, assume for a second that you launch prediction markets. I like. Oh, sorry. This and this is a result of me having done a lot of understanding of the work that you guys have created and applying it to certain areas. And one place that sort of makes me a little bit nervous is applying that sort of technology because it's so goddamn powerful. Actually, we should, before we open this up, what are prediction markets from your perspective? What is the work that you guys have been working on with regard to prediction markets? at the moment? If you can share any information that you want to share.
Yeah, well, a prediction market is just a market where you can place bets on the outcome of future events, like who will be the president. You can bet on Joe Biden or you can bet on Donald Trump. And if you were right, you make money, and if you were wrong, you lose money. And what we're focused on is a decentralized prediction market protocol. So you would have a peer-to-peer oracle system where you have some way that people can cast votes about what the outcome of an event was without having a central person in charge of it. And then the same thing, if you voted on the right thing, you make money. If you voted on the wrong thing, you lose money. And then the tagline of Hive Mind is making cheap talk expensive. And it's like everybody knows the phrase, you could put your money where your mouth is. And people sometimes will say one thing in public and then actually believe an entirely different thing because of maybe inside knowledge that they have, which is why one of the most popular prediction markets was called InTrade, because it was sort of a joke that people who had inside market information would bet on that information, on the outcome that they knew was going to happen. And that's a way for the truth to be revealed in a much more efficient, quick manner. Because people who put the most amount of money behind it have the most information about it.
Hmm. So instead of having to go through a very, how can I say, a linear process of having to read information, get all the, those people who have put a large amount of money on the thing have already done the legwork, have already done the hard work into understanding system X, and then putting down a large amount of money. So as a result, the bet itself is almost atomic, is what you're saying?
I don't know if I could say that, but
I mean, it communicates it the bet itself with a large amount of bets and whatnot on there.
yeah.
Communicates all that loaded information.
Yeah, I think that you were talking about CEOs being hired or fired before. That's a good example
Yes.
because you could have a question like, should the CEO of Bitcoin be fired? And you could have people with inside knowledge who know about corruption of the Bitcoin CEO, and
Yeah.
they know that there's some new person who could be a better Bitcoin CEO.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to tell you that on Twitter, but they
Yeah.
might put their money on it.
Yeah.
And then you can find out a year ahead of time.
Yeah. So what I like about this is actually there are three levels. There's what you say, what you believe, and what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the
They,
prediction market is all what you do.
exactly. And
Yeah.
what you do is what you actually are. It's not what you believe or what you say. There are three separate things. So Brian Trolls, I don't even want to bring him up, but so what you do, this technology distills everything down to what people do,
Yeah.
and it cuts away all the other bullshit. So that's how
Yeah.
you're able to communicate in an atomic manner that degree of information. You see
It's using game theory to find the truth.
yes, and that in and of itself is like another nuclear bomb technology. It's like
Yeah.
transistor technology. And so now, are you familiar with Mrs. Watanabe?
No.
Okay, Mrs. Watanabe is a name, a colloquial name. I think. Oh, did I even use the right word? It's a name for a group of people, and this group of people are the people who control the purse strings of the money earners in Japan. So all the husbands that go around earning, their day wages, they contribute it to the family, and it's up to the wife to sort of manage what to do with it, right? And what they were doing, I think in the 80s or something, they were doing a carry trade, whereby the value of the Japanese yen had, I don't know, decreased. I think it was decreased so much that what they did was that they'd take the money, and then buy foreign currency, right? But anyway, what happened was that Mrs. Watanabe became so powerful a player in these markets that she could actually shift these markets, because there she was, she was raising the children, feeding the children, and children would go off to school. And then with the husband's earnings, she would start to work with the markets. Now, at the moment, now we've evolved to the point where actually you can do day trading. You don't just buy foreign currency. You can actually do day trading. And
Yeah.
this is another reason why in Korea and Japan now also cryptocurrency is super popular, is because Mrs. Watanabe is trading these currencies. What happens? Okay, assume Drivechains gets merged. All these Mrs. Watanabes, all these people that are day trading now have prediction markets to work with. And suddenly it's not just about becoming a specialist in what features cryptocurrency X over cryptocurrency Y have, or which market, what amount of marketing budget cryptocurrency X has to make a stupid blog post somewhere, and then the price increases for whatever arbitrary reason. Now Mrs. Watanabe can start to talk about really controversial things or hot topics, like, for example, is Carrie Lam out here in Hong Kong, should she be replaced or something like that? These kind of like inflammatory questions, you see, like,
Yes.
and it's one thing in America to ask that sort of thing. I mean, you probably get a bunch of liberal sorts of people that'll sort of burn down your house if you put a Trump sign on your garden. But out here in Asia, if you move against the government, you get invited to tea, which is a loose term meaning
Doesn't
that
sound good.
No, it's not good at all. You don't want to be invited to tea. So the thing is, how do you disseminate? Okay, it's all very good and well that you're able to retain a sense of anonymity associated with your bet, right? But the technology you guys have developed out there propagates in a space which is more conducive to communicating that information without censorship. Out here in Asia, Bahrain, Singapore, Indonesia, if you communicate that stuff, your IP address will be shut down. Ain't gonna fly. How are you going to?
I
how are
think
you
that
going
it
to
would
propagate? So how are you going to propagate prediction market data over these networks?
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
I would recommend people only use it after consulting with a lawyer and making sure that everything that they're
The
doing
fuck
is
up.
totally legal. But then besides that, everything is on a blockchain.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can censor that, especially if they
Yeah.
identify it as unique messages. You can use encryption. There's things like VPNs that kind of work a little bit, but
Yeah.
the Mrs. Watanabe is probably not operating in that way. I
That's
think the
correct.
people that use it might have to be a little bit more specialized than that.
Because now you're putting some very, very powerful tool in the hands of Mrs. Watanabe. And yeah, more thought needs to go into that. In America, it might work. The Mrs. Jones might be able to not, get invited to tea. But out here
There's plenty of questions here that would get you invited to tea also, so
Oh,
I don't know. I think our free speech is mostly surface level at this point.
Is that so? That is such a huge. That's so disappointing to hear. But wouldn't it be like just trolls coming in and mobbing you? Wouldn't that is that the equivalent of being invited to tea out in America now? Is the mob?
Yeah, the way it works in America, the government doesn't really mess with you. It's just the entire social media gets you fired and publicly shamed to the point that you're unemployable for saying you can say things that are totally legal. The government's not going to bother you about it. It's just going to be the society that bothers you about it.
Mm. But as a foreigner, I can say stuff and I don't get any sort of ramifications. What do you think? I've noticed this, and maybe do you think I would get backlash if I was a lot more of a popular person? Because then people can sort of get more attention. Is this about
Yeah, it's
attention seeking?
definitely proportional to the popularity.
Okay. So then I'm motivated deliberately to be controversial or contradictory or belligerent just so I can get attention. Is that how it works in America generally?
It's more that you're pushed to follow latest trends and social virtues in order to be accepted by people. Like you need to care about the current events. You got to put a flag on your Twitter bio,
Okay.
a, a
I
sticker on your
understand.
car.
I understand.
You have to
This,
wear a mask.
oh
You have to
God,
do
yeah.
whatever it is that the people
Yeah.
want you to do to
Yeah.
feel like you're
Yeah.
participating.
Yeah. Okay, let's open up more about prediction markets, but let's have a quick bathroom break. How about that?
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Let's press pause. We're back. Okay, so prediction markets now. You guys have an implementation, a new implementation. How many times have you implemented prediction markets? Have you implemented more than once? What's the story?
Yeah, there was an original version written by somebody else that I did a little bit of updating to and
Yeah.
added a user interface to. And that version is based on a very old version of Bitcoin Core 0.12. So I upgraded it to work on 0.16. And now we are rewriting the whole thing in Rust because everybody prefers that.
Yeah, you got to rewrite the world in Rust, right?
Yep. That's what
Yes.
everybody else seems to be doing. So
You know, I've become a lot more friendly towards Zig recently. Zig is a pretty interesting language. Yeah, it's like C done right.
I'll look into that one. I've been looking at Rust lately because everybody won't stop talking about it.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of flags that you have to put on bios within that community.
Yeah, I I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's a complete fresh rewrite from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a few questions regarding the implementation. Now, do you have, okay, two questions. The first one, I'll mention them. So the first one is there a set of core libraries which allow you to interact with the drive chain mechanism?
We are working on that also,
Would it be a
but
separate library type thing?
yeah, so actually Nikita, one of the developers at Layer 2 Labs, is working on
Yes.
a Rust library to create sidechains and interact with Drivechain.
Brilliant. That's cool.
It's not done yet, but there's a lot of progress being made.
Is the code open?
Yeah, everything should be at the Layer 2 Labs GitHub.
That's groovy. I will go and investigate that. And then the second question I have is the prediction markets. I have three questions. And the second question is, does it have an API that I can build applications to interface with this backend?
Well, the old version does, and the new version will.
Okay.
So
And
yes, when it's finished, it will.
and the third question relates to being invited to tea out here in Asia.
Yeah,
Do you have some sort of federation on the nodes, or is it a centralized type thing?
there's no centralization at all.
Oh wait, is federation?
Well, there's a set of reputation tokens and a set of vote tokens, and people could buy the voting tokens and then vote. That's all that they have to do. There's not like a
Okay,
sign up process or anything.
uh-huh. Okay,
But
and
then they have to vote or they lose their tokens.
Whoa. Okay. Well, cool, man. Cool.
You
Okay.
can abstain from voting though, so that counts as voting.
Is it a slush economy?
I don't know. There's like 5 different versions of how to trade on the markets. You should ask Paul about that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So you're not. How much of a role are you playing in the implementation of this?
I'm not working on it at all.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
bugger. Oh, I wanted to ask in-depth questions about this to you.
You should have Nikita on again. You
I
already
yeah,
did.
yeah, I have had Nikita on. Maybe I'll do it again. But man, I was so the audio on that one fucked up so badly. So yeah, next time around I'll have to make sure the audio is pretty good. Oh man, I'm still that's one of the like when when you do like something and you like cringe. That's one of the
Yep.
cringing things
Yep.
I had. Oh fuck, it's so annoying. Anyway, okay, I'll have Nikita on again, and then we can go into more depth. But I'll wait for him to actually implement those libraries, and maybe prediction markets, and just to get some more information regarding that. That would be cool. But can I extract any more information from you then, with regard to this?
I can only explain the actual code and not how it works.
But the actual code implements how it works, right?
Yeah, but the way that the outcomes are calculated and the distribution of the reputation and
Oh,
vote coins was not written by me.
oh, was that Nikita
That was previously written by somebody else.
under Paul, Paul was guiding the process?
I believe he had help from Paul.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so so then you
But
get
the
what
vast majority of the difficult math was done by somebody else, not me.
okay. So you've got this reputation coin and a vote coin, right? How does that work?
Yeah, so you can vote on the outcomes using the vote coins. And
Okay,
then,
so a question will be posed, will Trump win or
yeah,
not?
and then
And
people
then
vote with their vote coins and
so I
they
would
are
go onto a
paid.
chain. I would go onto
Yeah,
I want to make it very simple for me to understand. So I would go on to some sort of side chain, right? How
yes,
would I get the vote coins?
you would have to buy them from somebody.
Who's somebody?
I don't know, that's going to be part of the final implementation, but
So is it a
it was
finite amount of
originally,
yeah?
yeah, and it was originally designed as an altcoin itself. So there's some changes that have to be made for the sidechain version of it.
Okay.
And since I won't have somebody issuing the coins.
So there's going to be, I assume that there will be a finite amount of vote coins there are, and there will be a market where you can go and say, I want to buy vote coins, right?
Yeah, probably.
So therefore, you're going to get a price fluctuation of vote coins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when very interesting. So as more and more, this is actually quite interesting. So as you get more tumultuous times, the coin will go up in value.
Yeah, and as the markets, you can extract more money from the market, the coin goes up in value.
Yeah, and then you start thinking, well, do I want to make money from using the coins, or I just hodl the vote coins?
You have to vote. You
Oh
can
yeah.
abstain too, but yeah.
Okay, so that means the votes will be the vote coin will be pulled from me, right? And they go
Yes.
into some pool, is that right?
Yeah, essentially.
So whoever controls that pool is going to be a nice little gatekeeper right there, right?
Well, that is controlled by the software.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on the previous outcomes, the reputation and vote coins are redistributed. If you if you voted incorrectly, then you lose money. And those are redistributed to
No,
the
but that's
people who did
assuming
vote
that's
correctly.
assuming that you've made the vote. I'm saying in the scenario where I abstain, I don't vote, and I just buy the vote coins and I hold the vote coins, and then the vote coins will just magically disappear from my wallet if I don't
They'll
use
just
them.
become invalid.
Invalid. So that means it's a slush economy then. Stuff gets created in one side of the thing, it moves through the system and then gets destroyed. So okay. So how are vote coins created and destroyed?
Well, in the super old version I can only tell you how it works in the software. In the old
Okay.
version of the software, they were just created in the Genesis block because it was going to be an altcoin, and they were just sent to an address. And whoever owned that address had all the vote coins, and then they could sell them. The way it
Okay.
will work as a sidechain will have to be different, and it's not finished, so I don't know how Nikita's actually going to do it.
Okay. So all right. So that means speculatory questions with speculatory hypothetical questions, hypothetical answers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now that's fine. We can still work with it because it's part of the process of sort of hashing things out. And maybe I can extract partial information from you to construct a more cohesive whole. So in a sidechain scenario, maybe I send Bitcoin into the sidechain, and the Bitcoin is actually the vote coin, and I can collapse it back down into the main chain. Do you know that
Yeah.
much?
Well, that's further than the new implementation has gotten,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know.
And would that
But
be the
yes, it
ideal?
could work that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would that be the ideal? Would that be the specification?
I don't know.
Okay. And then you said there was another one. There's a vote coin, and then there's a reputation coin, did you say?
Yeah, there is also a reputation coin, and I believe that weights the votes that you cast without affecting the payout of the vote based on your previous voting history and your
Okay.
accuracy of your votes.
Okay. Why would you want that?
You should ask Paul.
Okay, now let's speculate. Let's not ask Paul. Why would you speculate that? Why would you want that?
Well, you would value people's votes who have had a history of accurately voting more than people who don't.
Would this not also be a way to identify you? I remember I'm keeping the invitation to tea here in my mind all the
It's
time.
only identifying UTXOs,
Okay.
and they obviously can change over time and be transferred to different people.
Okay. All right. So the reputation is associated. Oh, so the reputation is calculated through the UTX. So would that be no? But you can change the ownership of that. That means you have
Yeah,
to have the
so
same
you could
identity.
transfer the
Okay.
rep to a new person.
Oh, you could, hey?
I think
Oh.
that's what that means. I'm
Oh.
speculating right now.
No, I don't think so. Well, because if you vote on something, that means you're sending the. Okay, so when you vote on something, you send the coin to something. What are you sending the coin to? A question, right?
You're creating a transaction that has some op return data in it and is basically burning the coins.
Right. Oh,
And
okay.
then, yeah, and then upon the outcome being correct, you'll be paid back in new coins.
So it's kind of like a drive chain.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of similarities going on there.
Yeah.
So in oh wow, so in that essence, like every single question is sort of kind of thumb suck, do that, looks like a drive chain in its own essence. Interesting. I asked this question because I would like to know if it's possible to create some kind of maybe an application whereby you get Mrs. Watanabe, who looks at this a situation, a particular situation. Maybe it's a school related thing or even a government related thing or some sort of related thing, and she thinks that's interesting. It can gain enough interest. Let me quickly, on the spur of the moment, write out some information on my phone, post it, get people interested, yay or nay, to this question, and then very quickly it gets resolved and then people get paid out. Creating that kind of scenario would be very interesting for society, I think.
Yeah.
Because now you don't have to start gossiping. You don't have to start spreading rumors. All you do is you spread this one entry point, this sort of identifiable entry point, and you spread it amongst your friends, and then it strips away all that, what I say, what I believe, and it comes down to what I do. And there you go. The truth becomes apparent very, very quickly. Yeah. And if everybody's got that technology on their phone, it's going to be like this loud gong of truth that'll be like resonating throughout the land kind of thing.
Yeah.
And especially if it's based on something with like a hard capped money, digital money, and it's just going to be this, like, who needs to be trading shitcoins on exchanges? Fuck it, destroy it anyway. So that's another means for prediction markets. Also will do away with, I won't say maybe, will likely do away with all that speculative power, because all of that stuff gets put into the prediction markets. The next thing is, it's not essentially gambling, because gambling, you're betting against the house, and the house have created these buildings, and they're playing special music which sort of induces you into this trance-like state, and they feed you, and they make sure you got access to all your bodily needs, and you just spend your money away, and you're betting against the house, and the house specifically will make the odds such that they win more often. But in this situation, there is no house. There is only a group of people who either the wolves or the sheep, right? I think I had a conversation with Robin Hansen about that. Wolves or sheep, and that's who you're going to be betting against.
Yeah, the idea is for people to actually have done research and have knowledge about what they're voting on. So the closer it gets to gambling, the faster they're separated from their money by the protocol. So it's sort of an anti-gambling, but it's
But in jurisdictions, for example, in Hong Kong, maybe that might be classified as gambling.
Yeah.
So if I were to launch an instance of this out here in Hong Kong, I might be, severely fined for running. So this is why I ask whether it's a centralized server or not, because if it is a centralized server, then, and I have to run it from my office, for example, then I'm going to get a knock on the door, and I don't want that knock. So how does the back end of the software run such that I don't get that knock? Because, like, for example, BitTorrent, the creators of BitTorrent, Bram Cohen and whatnot, he has had no legal threats for creating that technology. But where things do get controversial is if I run a tracker, or if I start
once you actually use it to do illegal things is when people care. And that's the same for this, I think.
Yes. Oh, is it? Yeah, okay. So yeah, so that means, in my mind, one needs to have certain technology which will allow you to obfuscate your identity, not only as the money person, but also the actual information that is communicated to Mrs. Watanabe and backwards. This is quite a difficult problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is.
And I designed. Well, I've designed this sort of network to do this sort of thing, but I designed it because I was I was influenced by WikiLeaks, right? For many years, I looked at this situation. I said, well, how would you design a networking protocol such that you can convey inflammatory information such as that of WikiLeaks? And I've arrived. I believe I've arrived at that. But the thing is that it never crossed my mind that there was something even more inflammatory than WikiLeaks, and that's prediction markets. It's crazy inflammatory.
It could be.
Yeah.
Here in the US, they're allowed for only non-serious sports betting.
Do they classify it as gambling?
Yeah.
So just like Bitcoin is separated money from state, whereby the state can actually do nothing about Bitcoin because you have to hunt down all the nodes and basically put a gun to everybody's head. Paul is not a stupid guy. He must be aware of this. Therefore, the design from the very beginning should be in place such that it is completely distributed. It's basically doing what Bitcoin has done to money, but now you do prediction
Yeah,
markets.
a big part of the problem is solved by the voting, because some other prediction markets, of course, they'll get the answers to something from the internet, or they'll try to access some API with news information in it, and they'll have a link to that, and obviously some people can't read that, and some people can't get to that information. Some people can only look at the blockchain. And so if all of the vote information is on the blockchain itself and people don't have to go looking for it somewhere else, it makes it a lot easier to communicate things.
Oh, so what
It doesn't have to resolve out to like a database where people have put a check mark next to
Very
the right answer.
interesting.
The voting removes that central person who says what is right or wrong.
That's very interesting. So now
Like
you actually,
predict it, the way that worked, people would bet, and then the company itself would say what the outcome of something was. And there was examples where they were wrong, or they said it too early, and that's bad in its own. And that could happen in HiveMind too, because people could vote incorrectly, but then they would lose. There's obviously they're incentivized not to, but they still could. But instead of the information coming from a database or a person, it's coming from the collective voting economy.
so that means all the chat messages, the yay or nay, is that information in the form of a value on on
Well,
the
people
vote
wouldn't need to
as well as
send
a
like a
direction, or
people
is
wouldn't
there
have
actually?
to chat with each other necessarily. They could look at the chain itself and what people are voting on.
Okay. Huh. Okay, so that's the information that's just there. It's just a denomination, the amount of money and a direction, yay or nay, and then
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated because there's like multi-dimensional markets where you can have markets that have an outcome based on the outcome of other markets. You
Oh
could
yeah,
have a market for multiple decisions at once combined, like
yes,
multiple different CEOs of different companies being
yeah,
fired could be the outcome of one market that's tracking like GDP growth of the United States or something.
yes. I see. Yeah, okay. So, but I would imagine that the first implementation would just be very, very simple, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just simple questions, and then understand it and then evolve it from there. It's like you throw, instead of building a bridge across a canyon, you say, oh, I or heavenly ordain that the bridge will be built here. What happens is you just throw across a rope,
Yep.
and you see where people cross using a rope, right? And then you're like, people are already start using it, crossing the bridge over here, crossing the canyon over here. I mean, let's start building a simple bridge over here. And then from there, you build up the bridge until you got like a massive highway that crosses the bridge at that point. Then you know where people are using it instead of you just doing astronaut engineering. Okay, cool. All right. Any other things that you want to chat about? Like, can we go into? What other sort of like hobbies and whatnot do you do other than Bitcoin and or I mean you could lie or not tell me. Just let's get to know a little bit more about CryptAxe or that which you wish to share. Oh, are you still there?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh,
Oh,
geez,
okay.
did,
I don't
did
know
I
what
lose you
happened.
for a second?
I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, you asked me what my hobbies outside of Bitcoin were.
Yeah, yeah. Share with
Okay,
whatever. I
so the
thought
f
I thought you went like radio silence. You're like, fuck it, I'm not talking anymore.
no, no, I don't know what happened. But lately I've been doing a lot of gardening. I finally have a
Really?
backyard. Yeah, so I'm growing grapes. I've got tomatoes. I've got I have 5 chickens now. I had 6, but one of them went away. And yeah, it's really fun doing that. I also am really into like building model kits and
Oh yeah.
things like Gundams and
Oh
even
yeah.
Legos too sometimes.
Do you have
And
a 3D printer?
no, I want one though. I actually like the resin printers that can do the like clear figures. Those seem the
Yes.
coolest to me.
I just bought a Uniformation GK2. This is a resin printer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I've got
I'm looking it up.
and I've got the resin bath as well as the UV thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a messy thing, eh? It's a messy thing, 3D printing with resin. So I hear.
Yeah, I've heard the resin version is very chemically and stinky and
Yeah,
gross.
exactly. Yeah.
But it seems fun.
Yeah. So I saw a video on one fella who actually he's basically got a cupboard, and you open up the cupboard because resin doesn't like UV light, right? So you don't want to have
Yeah.
UV light flooding your 3D print. So you open up the cupboard, and he's got all the tools on the left side and on the right side of the in the door, and everything closes nicely. So you basically he just and he's got everything inside the cupboard, and with an extractor fan on top, which pulls the air straight outside. So there you've got a nice dark environment where all the tools are there, a nice rubbish bin on the bottom over there, a little work surface where you can just peel off the thing. And he uses something called wham bam plates. I bought them. So you don't actually scrape it off. You just bend the prints and they just pop
Oh,
off.
that's nice.
Yeah. So he's got a really, really nice setup. I'm not. It's difficult for me to here in Hong Kong. We all live in shoeboxes, and you have to be like a
Yeah.
multi millionaire in order to have a decent size
When did
space.
you move there actually?
Oh, like 16 years ago. I loved it.
Because one of the
Yeah.
I don't know about coolest because some people say it was awful, but one of the most interesting things in Hong Kong to me was the Kowloon Wall City that I've seen countless documentaries about.
Wait a
Where
second. Have you been here?
no,
Okay. Yes.
no, I
The
saw
Kowloon
videos of
Wall
it.
City is a
It
fascinating
seems
place.
so cool.
I don't know about cool. Like I know people who are
Dangerous,
born,
but interesting.
maybe not so much. I mean, again, it's like whose toes do you step on? Like they're all
Yeah.
organized crime there. Like thieves have their protocol, right? I know people that were born and raised there, man. And
Oh wow.
yeah, no, it's a whole different thing. They've created 3D models of the place. There's
Yeah.
like recently there was a game called Stray. It was
I saw that. I didn't play it.
yeah, it's where you control a cat, and I believe they're using a 3D model of that
Oh, that's
of
cool.
Kowloon Walled City, but you can actually watch some documentaries about that place. It followed the mainland Chinese legal system. It's a separate
Yeah, it was a little autonomous zone, right?
exactly.
And they really went with it, building all the way up into the sky as far as they could go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really impressive what people did on their own.
But, yeah, I mean, I think at one point it was the most populous, densely populated place on Earth.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Like in my area over here, like I went on holiday recently to Indonesia, and I sat next to some Swiss couple, and they were talking about their village. And then, the village is like a tiny, tiny little place with only a very small amount of people. And like just in my apartment complex over here, it's very civil. It's very nice. People are very
Mhm.
polite, and but there are 6,000 people here.
Jeez.
That's more than like a town.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing you've got to get used to around here in Hong Kong is that people are everywhere, but people are very civilized and polite with each other. And one example, like the Western people generally might not get this. It's like when I was in Thailand, I was walking and we sort of came down the stairs, and I had to cut left around the corner. And this Western guy, this old Western guy, he just was walking straight. He didn't give a fuck about anything, just pushed you out the way.
Yep.
And I was like,
Yeah.
man, like, why do you bring your Western ways to this place where everybody's so, sort of gentle and yeah, I don't know, man, ideology. Anyway.
Yeah, I've been to Japan, which
Oh
is
yeah,
not like Hong Kong, but it's in Asia. And
yeah,
it was crazy how much more polite people could be in such a crowded area.
yeah.
Because in the United States, I feel like if there's 100 people in a building, it starts to get chaotic and loud. But there
Oh
was parts of Japan where I went through underground, tiny, tiny staircases with thousands of people. No one bumped into me, and it was
yeah,
dead silent.
yeah, yeah. And people
Yeah.
formed orderly queues, right?
Oh yeah, it was. I actually, the first thing that I did there was be an incredibly rude foreigner, and I cut the taxi line at the airport, and because I didn't realize that they made lines. Because in my Western brain, there isn't a line for anything. It's just whoever gets to the front where the taxi is. But they actually had a line wrapping all the way to the exit door of the airport, and then the taxi driver walked me to the end of the line. So I could wait. But then after that, I was very polite and I understood all of the rules. They even stand on one side of the escalator
Yes,
so
we
that
do
you
that.
can walk. Yet
Yeah.
no Americans walk up the escalator, so they would never think to do that.
Why not?
Yeah, you just stand.
No,
You let the robot do it.
no, we got places to go here, man. We got to snap, 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 get moving quickly. So we open up a channel for people to walk up.
Yeah, I loved
I
it.
always take that channel. I always walk up.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I think from your personality, you might actually really enjoy being out here in the East. People are a lot more polite and civil towards each other, and far more practical. Although you might have an issue with your garden, because here in
That would
Hong
be a
Kong,
challenge. Yeah.
yeah, no, if you've got a garden out here, ooh, fancy stuff. You're a rich kid. Very good. You
It's
can go
getting
to,
tough out here now, but
is it?
yeah, but we still do have a lot more land.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so the 3D printing, then you do gardening. Are you into like that whole permaculture thing?
Um, I did build a thing called a Hugel culture, but it was such a failure that I wouldn't say I'm really
What
successfully
is that?
into.
What is a Hugo
It's
culture?
it's like a permaculture adjacent idea where you build a mound using organic material like trees, and then you put dirt on top of that,
A
and then over
compost.
time, but you grow food in it.
Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Did it just get destroyed and eaten? Nothing
yeah,
grew.
mine got attacked by pests. There's too many pests out here.
Okay. Well, one thing my mum swears by is her worms. Now,
Yeah, I have two big worm bins inside my house actually.
oh, inside,
Yeah, yeah.
is that to get
Yeah,
rid
it
of the
gets too
pests?
cold. I can't keep
Oh,
them outside. They'll die.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So at least in summer you can keep it outside, though, I assume.
Yeah, I just keep them inside.
So you like my mom? My mom, she loves her worms. She's like my little
They're great.
babies.
They make dirt for you. They eat stuff.
Top quality stuff, man. You just
Yeah.
throw your vegetable peelings and
Yeah.
whatnot in
The
there.
chickens are even better because
Oh,
you can
really?
give them, yeah, you can give them all kinds of stuff and then they make eggs. So you actually get
Ooh.
the worms just make dirt. The chickens, you actually get eggs. So that's nice.
But dirt is good because then you put it on your tomatoes, you put it on
Oh
your
yeah. Yeah, they're both good.
yeah. But just so every morning you sort of wake up and you go into put your hand into the chicken coop and grab some eggs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, um, there are times in my programming where I've looked at this technology and said, what the fuck am I doing? Why the fuck am I doing this? And I sort of think back and like, why not buy a little plot of land and grow some like fucking pawpaws and pineapples and rice and just do that?
I really like the contrasting difference
Yeah.
between doing the gardening stuff versus computer stuff. Like, if I'm working on a difficult problem,
Yeah.
I want to only use the computer if I'm working on that, and then do something definitely very different to think
Yeah.
about it. Like
Yes.
mowing a lawn or trimming a tree or something like that, or working on another one of my hobbies. I like to work on cars, my own broken cars.
Oh, really?
So,
What kind of
yeah.
cars do you have?
Right now, I've got a 1984 Honda CRX
Oh
and
yeah.
a 1988 Saab 900. The Saab
Oh,
actually runs, so that's pretty cool.
whoa. So you can actually start it, right?
Yeah, that's about it, but you can do that.
Yeah, no. I've in South Africa you have to have a car. Um
Yeah.
and but that's one of the major reasons why I like Hong Kong is that I I don't you don't need a car. We have this wonderful transportation system. To me, it's like the gold standard of
Yeah, I
transportation system.
love in Japan, the public transit is awesome. I do not like driving as
Yeah,
a transit thing
yeah,
or to get to the grocery store or anything like that,
yeah,
especially on busy roads. I hate it. I only enjoy driving in the countryside for fun.
yeah. Yeah, the only time I do driving now is when we go on holiday. We might rent a
Yeah.
car and then we fuck off on the back roads of Japan. We see these lovely,
Yeah,
like the
that'd be
leaves
great.
and the sakura. Oh God, it's so enjoyable. That's when driving is most enjoyable for me. But if I cast
Yeah.
my mind back to when I was driving in South Africa and you going fighting through the traffic to get to work, and then you got I've got a delivery. One moment
Hey, no problem.
again.
Yeah, that's
So,
fine.
oh wait, so just so the audience can hear, delivery coming. I might have to press pause and I'll go to the door again. Doesn't matter. Um, yeah, no, yeah, that's a great thing about being out. Hong Kong, our transportation system even better than Japan. Japan is like the stations are not nicely organized. You have to walk quite a distance, maybe even between train stations and whatnot. But in Hong Kong, you just walk across the platform. It's
It
lovely.
sounds nice.
It's
I'd
lovely.
love to go there.
Yeah, you should come. We will take you around. We'll take you around to all the
Yeah, I
the
need to do
nerdy
that.
places and whatnot. I actually, yeah. Now that Layer Two Labs Asia is here, I think you guys should definitely come on out.
I started learning Japanese a year or two ago, and I should
Yeah.
have started learning a different Asian language so I
Ah, it
could speak
doesn't
to people
matter.
in Hong
No, no.
Kong.
Japanese is great. Japanese is great. You're gonna get very far. Hong Kong loves Japan, so we go to Japan all the time. And just in December, we've got a trip to Japan. We're gonna be doing the Mount Fujisan.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
Yeah, and we're gonna have like an onsen which sort of overlooks Mount Fujisan.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's awesome.
and in the winter, while it's busy snowing, and you like cuddled up in the hot water over there looking at Mount Fujisan.
Yeah,
It's
that
gonna be
sounds
great.
great.
Gonna be great. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think yeah, should we wrap things up now?
Yeah, unless you can think of anything else. I hate to end
Nah.
it with me not knowing anything about hive mind.
It's okay. It's okay. I've covered the territory which I needed to cover, which was to sort of like highlight to you that out in competitive dictatorship type scenarios, um, it's one thing having your actual vote being safe and secure, but you have to be careful about how we communicate that information. But you
Yeah,
said to me that actually that it's just the UTXO and the
yep,
yay or nay, which
yeah, and the
which means that
votes.
it is actually quite
It
easy.
makes it a lot easier.
It does, yeah. So you're not actually communicating like. But what about the metadata associated with that? I mean, humans need to read the question like, oh, will Carrie Lamb be
Yeah,
fired on
so the
PCs? How
way
does
it
that
works
work?
right now, all of that is encoded into transactions and can be decoded by the nodes,
Okay.
so people can read it. And there's a whole graphical user interface that does that for you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so there'll be all the blocks coming in and they'll just look like blocks, but then if you know the data to look for, you can decode the creation of decisions, markets,
Right.
people's votes, the outcomes, and things like that. Every single thing that happens in HiveMind is recorded onto the blockchain. Like every single outcome of every decision is permanently stored.
Oh, I suppose this is also a reason why Paul created that news thing. Um,
You could relate the two, yeah.
because he probably thought, oh yeah, no, I need news to be censorship free. I need news to be able to propagate over this medium. So
Yeah, and it's useful for a lot more than that too.
oh, of
Like,
course, like
yeah,
asking, propagating certain highly inflammatory information,
yeah. And it's
you know
also cool to let people use Bitcoin from inside of the node,
yes,
do
yeah,
things besides just sending money.
yeah. Yeah, but now we're going to sort of like go into the whole, oh, well, Bitcoin's only about money. But what I don't understand with this argument that people keep saying is that like oh, they don't want images and stuff on there. But we're humans, right? Like if I buy something from you, it's in exchange for something.
Yeah.
So at least allow humans to have the equivalent of being able to put a receipt.
The image is a use of money. It's the service they're paying for is data storage.
Well, but that's what I mean.
But
Like,
people don't, yeah,
yes,
but people don't.
exactly. So like the equivalent of a receipt, to say, oh, this is what I bought, something like that. And you might encrypt it or whatever you're doing, or it doesn't matter. But the thing is that it's not real. It's not practical just to say that. Oh well, I suppose they might say, well, your transaction ID is that, but
Yeah.
the receipt actually says it's a certain amount of money for this. You see what I mean? And I don't know. Anyway, let's not hash out this thing too much. I think we've covered a lot of territory. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully you can create a good podcast out of it. I really appreciated your feedback about the fork and everything. I know you really think we should use lib Bitcoin, and that's an interesting suggestion. But I appreciate definitely all of your feedback about that. I think
Yeah,
we agree
I
much.
think. I mean, I'm not saying if there's going to be a fork or not, but if there was going to be a fork, um, yeah, like the lib Bitcoin stuff seems like a very good direction to go in, because you don't have to deal with a bunch of musical chairs stuff, which
Yep.
people are creating. Then you also get Eric Voskul, who in his own the man's a fucking, he's like a granite, like he's this hard as fuck, and he's practical too. He's a very practical dude, and he's delivered some great code. It's modularized. It's very good to work with. And if, for example, the zombies and the hyenas absolutely refuse to get Drivechains merged in, and the opportunity to create this Bitcoin not Bitcoin Enigma, in Bitcoin, what was it? The word that you said, where they used to test out some certain features.
Oh, Bitcoin Inquisition.
Bitcoin Inquisition. So you create something equivalent to Bitcoin Inquisition, but for Bitcoin Drivechains, but you do it on lib Bitcoin. Then what happens? Maybe it starts to gain traction, especially out here in Asia. And then what happens is that eventually down the line, somebody like Eric Voskul looks at this and says, you know what? I'm sick to fucking death of Bitcoin Core constantly fucking biting at my heels and being ungrateful for the work that I'm, my time, my money, my energy putting into this. I said, look at this thing that's going on in Asia. We've got somebody I know, which is Paul Stotts. He's got some great ideas. There's a great community adoption. It seems like this is the way that Bitcoin is sort of going. And then it's already lib Bitcoin. And then what happens is, very naturally, you have brought in another part of Osiris, which is Eric Voskul. And you come with that solid knowledge that comes onto the base chain, the base layer, the security. And that's like irreplaceable, man. That's really, really important to think about the long term for that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it would make it easier to bring in new people. Like, I see lib Bitcoin code examples being used to describe how Bitcoin Core works more than Bitcoin Core code examples, because people are able to actually find it and quote it and describe how it works instead of having to point you to like 10 different files.
Exactly.
So it's definitely a great achievement
Yeah.
in that regard, and it would have benefits.
Yeah. So I genuinely think it would be a mistake to use Core, but doesn't matter,
I don't totally
because
disagree.
but it doesn't really matter, because I mean, you can actually just, like, one of the things I want to do, I've actually registered a domain for this. What I want to do is I want to take Luke Dash Jr.'s patch and I would like to port it over to libbitcoin and maybe even fork libbitcoin, but done it in such a way that it's kind of like civil and whatnot, but maintaining a separate implementation. I think it's really good. It's really good for the ecosystem.
I think it'd be cool.
If that were to happen. But yeah,
Luke's patch, I think, there's progress being made, and once it's available for people to look at, I think it would be the most refined, smallest version of the drive chain changes, and so it'd be a good starting point for you to do something like that.
Right. So are you saying he's going to up your game?
I think that by cutting out like the user interface and all of the stuff that isn't 100% necessary, it just makes it easier to see what the changes are. And then because Luke is super familiar with the newest version of Bitcoin Core, it should be pretty tidy, especially compared to what I could make. And yeah, of course he's gonna up my game. I mean,
nothing wrong with a bit of self-deprecation, as long as you don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
CryptAxe, thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.
All the best to you, my man. Let's stop the recording.
All right.
There you go.